I will. Okay. ଆମର morphology paper ରେ ରହିଛି ପାଞ୍ଚଟା. There are 5 sections. Section 1 ହଉଛି fundamentals of geomorphology. Section 2 ହେଲା evolution of landforms. Section 3 ହେଲା geomorphic processes, static and dynamic 1. Section 3 ହେଲା geomorphic processes, static and dynamic 1. Section 4 ହେଲା geomorphic processes, static and dynamic 2. ତାପରେ section 5 ହେଲା applied geomorphology. ଯେମିତି ପାଞ୍ଚଟା section ଅଛି ତାକୁ ପାଞ୍ଚଟା block ବୋଲି ବି କୁହାଯାଉଛି. So your paper, geomorphology paper contains these 5 blocks of 4 credits. ଏ ଯୋଉ 5 block ଭିତରେ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରଥମ ଅଛି ଏ ସବୁ ଜାଗାରେ 17ଟା ୟୁନିଟ୍ ଅଛି. There are 17 units. ତମର ଯୋଉ ବହି ମିଳିବ geomorphology paper ର ଯୋଉ study material ମିଳିବ ତା ଭିତରେ 17ଟା ୟୁନିଟ୍ ରହିବ covering these 5 sections. ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ତଳକୁ ଆମେ ଟିକେ ଯିବା section କୁ, ୟୁନିଟ୍ କୁ. ତେଣୁ ୟୁନିଟ୍ ଆମର 17ଟା ଅଛି, ତା ଭିତରୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା କଣ୍ଟେଣ୍ଟ କ'ଣ କ'ଣ ଅଛି, ଆମେ କ'ଣ ଡିସ୍କସ୍ କରିଛେ, ଆଉ କ'ଣ ବାକି ଆଜି ଡିସ୍କସ୍ କରିବା, କାଲି ପୁଣି କ'ଣ କରିବା. ତେଣୁ ୟୁନିଟ୍ 1 ରେ ଅଛି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ଅଫ ଜିଓମର୍ଫୋଲୋଜି. Development of geomorphology, we are supposed to know something about what is geomorphology, what is the significance of the subject of geomorphology in physical geography or in earth sciences, what is the nature and scope of geomorphology, how this subject is characterized, how the scope of the subject is related to the contents that we are looking for, and how the scope of the subject is linked to other subjects also, and how the scope of geomorphology further extends towards research and towards other areas of teaching and learning and knowledge creation. So those are the areas where nature and scope of geomorphology. And then what are the approaches to geomorphology? If we are going to study geomorphology, then what are the approaches? Approach means ଆମେ କେମିତି ଭାବରେ study କରିବା, how we use this knowledge, and how to experiment on this subject, how to go for different kind of methodological approaches that we can study geomorphology. ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଭାବିବା, one example is we can go to a field study and then we can learn geography. Like suppose the river topography, fluvial topography, we go to the rivers, go through the river banks and then see the landforms and describe them, and look to the book language, look to the what we are seeing in the field, try to validate both the things, and then we acquire the knowledge of what is there in the field. That is what is field approach, a field approach to geography. There can be a theoretical and modeling approach to geography. Modeling means theoretical modeling. What is the theory? And the theory on Davis theory discuss that is a model. Youth, maturity, and old age is a conceptual model. जो model अनुसार हमारा landform evolution को discuss करा होती. So that is a model approach. So field work approach, model approach. There can be statistical approach also. Statistical approach रे हमें जेकोन से बेटा landform को तार different parameters को हमें statistically study करी परिवा. माने कि बेटा river रो landform creation को हमें study करीवा in terms of what is the amount of water discharge, what is the amount of sediment discharge, what is the velocity of the flow of water, what is the slope of the river bank, what is the slope of the river valley. ये सब जिन study करके statistically we can simulate and manipulate and try to find out different equations of explaining that this much of sediment, this much of flow, this much of velocity, this much of landform creation can happen. ये जो type of the study can also be a statistical approach. So there are different approaches you are learning in this section. Then history of development of geomorphology, to some extent you are trying to know how the subject of geomorphology has developed over the time. How the subject has developed and who are those important people who has given shape to the present geomorphology. Today, geomorphology, the geography subject was not there and the entire curriculum across the globe. And once upon a time, people were studying about the thought decisions like how the development of geography took place, and how people during navigation they use the knowledge for describing the different parts of the world that they have exploring through the their traveling and through their expeditions, through their trade routes, through their different type of visiting to the different places and continents. Once upon a time. So from the European heartland, the geographic descriptions started coming with the different kind of explorers. And then slowly the subject appeared in the European universities at the beginning. in the name of physical geography and human geography. Then say stage is जो समय आरंभ होला, there was a kind of conceptual difference whether geography should be physical or whether geography should be human. ତେଣୁ କିଛି ଲୋକ କ'ଣ କଲେ ନା the dominance of physical geography was becoming prominent through their work. ତେଣୁ ସେମାନେ କହିଲେ that geography is supposed to be more physical. ତାପରେ କିଛି ଲୋକ ଆସିଲେ, those who started looking at the subject from a different sociological and then psychological, humanistic and then humanity point of view ତାକୁ ଦେଖିଲେ, and that is how they started looking at the subject as a part of humanities. ତେଣୁ ଏମିତି ହେଇକି there are two different disciplines of physical geography and human geography started developing. And what a core definition of geography there was no core definition where geography should be limited, what should be the meaning of geography, and then what is the territory of geography, where it begins, where it ends, what are the subjects within the subject geography, and then how it is linked to different other subjects, and what is the boundary between the geography and other subjects. Suppose geography and economics, there is a paper called economic geography. To what extent geography will go in towards economics and to what extent it is remain towards geography. Similarly, social geography, how much it will go towards sociology and then how much of sociology and geography has to go towards that. So like this, suppose geomorphology, how much it will go towards geology and then how much will remain within geography. So slowly, gradually, the geomorphology has developed over the years. ତେଣୁ କିଛିଟା ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଆ ଭିତରେ ଆସିବ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁସନ, ଯୋଉଟା କି that has given a shape to the subject of geomorphology. ଏଇ ୟୁନିଟରେ ତମେ ଏଇ ଜିନିଷ ଯାକ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ପାଇବ। ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ଲାଷ୍ଟ କ୍ଲାସରେ ଏଇ ଜିନିଷ ଯୋଉ ଯାକ ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲ ଜିନିଷ ଅଛି ତାକୁ ଆମେ ଡିସ୍କସ କରିବା। ଆଜି ମୁଁ ଡିସ୍କସ କରୁନି, ଆଜି ଖାଲି କହିଦଉଛି, କଣ୍ଟେଣ୍ଟ ଯାକ କହିଦଉଛି, so that you have a frame of mind ଯେ ଆମେ କ'ଣ କ'ଣ ଜିନିଷ ଆ ଭିତରେ ଦେଖୁଛେ, what is there. ତେଣୁ ଆ ଭିତରେ ଆସିବ contribution of Davis, contribution of Planck, contribution of Alfred Wegener, ଯେତେ ଯାକ ଲୋକ ତମେ ପାଇଲଣି ବା ଶୁଣିଛ କାଲି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ 2 ଦିନ ଭିତରେ, ସେମାନଙ୍କର ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ଆସିବ contribution at a particular period of time, that how they contributed to the subject of geomorphology, and geomorphology became an independent branch of paper within geography. ଏ ଜିନିଷ କେମିତି ହେଇଛି, କେମିତି ହେଲା, ତେଣୁ how geography related to other disciplines, ଏସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ଅଫ geomorphology ଗୋଟେ ୟୁନିଟ ଭିତରେ ଆସୁଛି। ତେଣୁ ତା ଭିତରେ ଆସୁଛି କ'ଣ, what is geomorphology, what is its significance, what is its nature and scope, what are the different approaches to the study of geomorphology, and what is the history of development, who are the important personalities who have developed the subject, and then how they have contributed to the enrichment of the subject. Okay. So this ହେଲା ତମର unit 1. So if you are going to unit 2, ତାର title ଅଛି କ'ଣ, basic postulates in geomorphology. Basic postulates ରେ କ'ଣ ହେଇଛି ନା, you are supposed to understand geography, and when it comes to physical geography and related to landforms, it has relation with the geologic time scale, because different times in the geological past, Earth has created different type of landforms. Some were mountains, some were plateaus, some were plains of different geological times. So you are supposed to have a background knowledge on the geological time scale. The geological time scale, what is coming in this geological time scale? If you think of the time scale right from the origin of the Earth, if it is 4 billion years back, from the expansion and then explosion of the Big Bang, and then the mass of gaseous matter has separated from the Big Bang and then started cooling, moving around in space, started cooling, and the Earth was formed and its satellites were formed. And along with that also the solar system was formed. So that is the stage when the beginning of the Earth took place, but it took about almost more than 3 billion years to condense and formation of the crust, then formation of the atmosphere, and then formation of the ocean and water bodies. Those things came up, and after that life started appearing. Ultimately we are coming to about 250 million years back when the life forms appeared on the Earth. There is age of period life nathila, that is called the Azoic era. Azoic means a period when there was no life. And then comes to the next one is Paleozoic era, and then Mesozoic era, and then Cenozoic era. The Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic started with the life forms. So Earth life form arambhala Paleozoic with unicellular amoeba type of plants and animals. Anyway, it was not a plant, not an animal, it is a unicellular species. ତେଣୁ ସେଇଠୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଛି ଲାଇଫ ପେଲିଓଜୋଇକ୍ ଏରା। ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ପେଲିଓଜୋଇକ୍ ଏରା ଠାରୁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିବା। ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଯାହା ହେଇଛି ଆମକୁ ନ ଜାଣିଲେ ଚଳିବ। ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଏତିକି ହେଇଛି that Azoic period, a period when there was a lot of earthquakes, the period that was a lot of volcanic eruptions, a period when a lot of contractions were going on in the earth by cooling process, and different type of structural activities were going on in the earth's surface. But when it came to the Paleozoic era, relative stability came on the land mass and the water bodies over the ocean and over the land, and then evolution of life started coming up with the form of amoeba, and subsequently multicellular animals evolved, and in course of time the entire life cycle started appearing with different phylum, different chordate, and then different species. All those things started emerging. So this Paleozoic era that begins from 250 million years back up to 60 million years. And from 60 million years to about 10 million years is the Mesozoic era. And then from 10 million to the present, 1 million is the Tertiary era or the Cenozoic era. And then the present is called as the Holocene. And the period is called as the Holocene period. So that is Neogene also. Sometimes people say Holocene is also being used as a word. So ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନକୁ ଆମେ ଆସିବାନି। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପ୍ରଥମରୁ Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic, Cenozoic ର ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ପାର୍ଟରେ ଲାଷ୍ଟ ମାନେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ ପାର୍ଟଟା ଆସୁଛି after the Cenozoic, and then Holocene period is there. So now we are in a Holocene period. And before and in the Holocene period, I mean, if you go to history, we are in this Holocene period is about more than 10,000 years now has gone. And in these 10,000 years, you can know what is the history. History is about 3,000-4,000 years of BC, and then AC, and that is how the history has also come up. Geological history ଜାଣିବାକୁ ହେଲେ ଆମକୁ ଏଇ ତିନିଟା ଏରାର different periods ରହିଛି, geological periods. Paleozoic era ଭିତରେ ରହିଛି 6ଟା period. ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା Paleocene, Pleistocene, Paleozoic, Paleocene, then the periods which are coming is Precambrian. It starts with the first of the oldest one is Precambrian, then Cambrian, then Ordovician, then Carboniferous, then Silurian, and Devonian. So these are the different periods of the Paleozoic era, and each have been comprising some amount of years. And during these eras, a different type of life forms have started. So initially, in the Precambrian era, there is development of unicellular to multicellular plants and animal cells. And then Precambrian, then Cambrian came when the microscopic organisms started coming up, and multicellular non-chordate means without backbone animals started appearing in the water bodies. And then slowly over the landmass also the species started appearing. So Precambrian, Cambrian, then Ordovician, Silurian, that is the time of evolution of fish and amphibians and all those living in plant, living in water, and living in land. So type of species started appearing. Then gradually we started seeing the different type of animals that we see as elephants or the deers or all those in the very miniature form. Those kind of animals started appearing. So during this Carboniferous, Silurian, and Carboniferous period came. So within that, about 150 million, after the 150 million years. So that is a important time when the earth started facing the ice age. So since that time, there was no ice age, but ice age started appearing in this phase. And from Carboniferous onwards, ice age came, and ice when came, then there is a lot of ice formation in the polar areas, and ice started extending towards the equator up to the tropics. And that is how the landscape started taking a different form, different shape, and the animals started accommodating and adapting to a new climatic environment. Many animals perished, and some animals who could able to move out and were able to thrive. So like this, there was a survival to the fittest was the situation in which many species remain, few species remain, many species extinguished. And then again the evolution process continued. So like this, Precambrian, Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous and Permian. So Permian is the end of the Paleozoic. So by the time the Paleozoic era is ending, we have almost all the mammals has also come up, all the flowering plants, non-flowering plants on the earth surface are very much there. So this is what was the life came to a very peculiar stage, predominant with all the animals and plants, both flowering, non-flowering, and then carnivorous, omnivorous, herbivorous, all those animals started appearing. So from Paleozoic onward, and that is the time when a lot of volcanic eruptions has taken place, a lot of mountain building activities has taken place. So that is how. So when we see over the earth surface, the old mountains, so if you look to the mountains of the Scandinavian countries, mountains like Urals mountain system, or mountains like Aravalli mountain system, or the Vindhya Satpuras mountain system, or the Appalachian mountain system of USA, these are some of the mountains which have been found in the Azoic period when there was no life on Earth. Very old mountains, so they are called the relic mountains sometimes because of the kind of oldness. And in India, probably the oldest mountain is the Aravalli mountain system. So like this, we have to look into what is the time when these mountain systems have also come up and then other important features have come up. So we have to link something to geology so that relevance of geomorphic evolution can be attributed in a understanding can come up in a better way. So this is how we are looking at how this geological time scale is going to help us. So after the Paleozoic, there came the Mesozoic. But during the Carboniferous period in Paleozoic, continental drifting process started. So by the time continental drifting process started, almost all the animals were there on the Earth's surface were started drifting apart also along with the movement of the continents. And that is how the distribution of species from Africa took place to different regions. So accordingly, what happened? So drifting took place in the Paleozoic, so this Carboniferous period, slowly it started. So when it entered into the Mesozoic period, that is the period when the evolution of this dinosaurs family started appearing on the Earth's surface. So that is the time, that is Mesozoic era. And Mesozoic era comprises of three periods. That is Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous. So, and this is about 50 million years total time period. And out of that, the middle part of this 50 million year was the climax of this dinosaurs family when dinosaurs were predominantly available across the globe over different parts of the Earth surface. So that is where the most important life forms appeared. And by the end of this, their multiplication became so much that the voracious eating habits of those species became so much that a lot of change took place during the Mesozoic by virtue by the these dinosaurs family, and Earth suffered and a kind of extinction of the total change in the environment, a large scale change in the environment, and destruction or the depletion of this particular species also. So by the end and starting of the Mesozoic, appearance of dinosaurs, groups of families, and then by the time the Mesozoic era ends, Jurassic and then Cretaceous. So everybody must have seen the Jurassic Park film that depicts how the Jurassic period was mostly associated with this dinosaurs type, various types of dinosaurs of land dwelling, flying, but many other types, varieties. And then Cretaceous period came and Mesozoic era ended there, and the dinosaurs started vanishing from the Earth's surface. And then it came to the Tertiary era. And Tertiary era started with the period called Eocene. So Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene, Pliocene, and Pleistocene. So like this Pleistocene is about 1 million years, last period. And this 1 million year, the present part is called Holocene. So in this Pleistocene period. So during this period, Earth has experienced 4 different stages of ice age. At regular intervals, the heating of the Earth, melting of the ice sheets, and then again cooling of the Earth, and then again the ice age formation, temperature going down, seawater was receding, lot of ice formation took place. Then again the period of heating came, and then again expansion of the seas, expansion of the melt ice into the form of water, covering large part of, submerging large part of the coastal areas. So there has been exposure, there has been submergence. There has been exposure, there has been submergence along the coastal areas in different parts of the globe. So that is how we are now finding at different places along the coast different type of um, hydrocarbon deposits, and these hydrocarbon deposits are relating to the predominance of the marine species during the time when there was a non-ice age period, when the expansion of water was there coming to the coast. And normally what happens in the coastal areas, the most high density species availability of the coastal zone is not the deep seas. Deep seas carry some of the big fishes like whales or sharks or something like that. But the maximum number of species that living in the sea remain mostly in the continental shelf zone. That means it is close to the shoreline. And so that is how the shorelines used to expand. More species used to come. When this is going on, again it is getting deposited. And in course of time, the melting within the Earth's crust and formation of natural gases and hydrocarbons. That is how in the continental shelf we find a lot of oil deposits and hydrocarbon deposits and natural gases. That is why. So that is one of the very important areas of this. So these things happened in the tertiary era and in the period of Paleocene, Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene, and Pliocene. So if you look to this particular period, that is major part of the Earth's surface that we are seeing is, we are not seeing what was the Paleozoic Earth. We are not seeing what was the Mesozoic Earth. We are not seeing even the tertiary Earth. We are seeing the last part of the tertiary, which has affected the entire globe, and what the landscape that we are seeing is the ultimate remains of that particular time. So what we see is major part is visible is of the tertiary era and of the Pleistocene time. And only occasional places where you will find inside the Earth's crust landscapes which have been formed during the Mesozoic or during the Triassic, Jurassic or during the Paleozoic era. So all these things have been buried over by the present day sediments across the globe, by either by wind or either by glacier or either by river sediments like this, or by the blown up by wind and then other materials. So that is how the landscape that we see is not at all of the past that we see. They are there inside the crust, but on the crust you find these things which are present. So time scale, geological time scale of this Paleozoic, Mesozoic and Cenozoic and their periods, and then different type of life forms in different stages and appearance, disappearance, and some of the index fossils of these particular periods, because when geology people go for research or the physical geography people go for research and they try to collect the samples of fossils of the remains of the ancient plants and animals of different places, then how do you know that the Himalaya is a place where the sediment was, where the sea was existing? Nobody has seen the Tethys Sea. The time when Tethys Sea was there was no life on this earth. So when there was no life of man on the surface of the earth, then who has seen that Tethys Sea? So it is a reconstruction of the geological history, the stratigraphy of the earth's surface. That is the science of geology called stratigraphy. So then, but what we see in that particular place now is most important evidence to give it relate to its geological past. So what we are now seeing in Himalayan mountain region, if you go and pick up a rock from any part of the mountain area of Himalayas, it's not a igneous rock, it's not a metamorphic rock, it is a sedimentary rock. So now your mind will struggle to answer why on such a height of about 8 kilometers on the surface of above the surface of the earth, these sedimentary rocks came on the mountain top. So then you will be puzzled to look into answer that on the 8-kilometer top of the Everest, if you find the sedimentary rocks, and if you bring those sedimentary rocks to the laboratory and try to see under the microscope, you will find the cells of the sea animals. Then again your mind will be puzzling to know about that how was the environment of water was there where presently the mountain is standing. So like this, geology starts relating to, and geomorphology, physical geomorphology also starts relating to all these kind of phenomena and features to explain us. The geological timescale has a very significant. So if you are very thorough in that, it will make you comfortable in understanding the geological activities, geomorphic activities that has undergone the Earth right from its origin to the present time. So that's why the geological time scale. Then important thing is there are two different concepts which are started looking into formation of the different landforms. What we see over the Earth's surface, we have discussed first order, second order, third order landforms. So how these landforms have been created? So there were people at the beginning, even if you go to the Greek philosophers like Eratosthenes or like those Plato's or Aristotle or those times, or if you go to the medieval period of Vidal de la Blackie, then all those people of the European philosophers. And you may call it, because there was a time when there was no subject called so individual subject, so it is either science or non-science. It was something like that. So the people who have been giving those various examples, they started thinking of that anything that has happened over the earth must have been by a catastrophic process. Means all of a sudden something has happened like earthquake or volcanic eruption, and some features have been created over the earth's surface. That is how the earth has changed its original configuration by condensing from the gaseous stage to the present stage. So the catastrophism was one of the basic ideas that some people started thinking of, that anything that has happened over the Earth's surface is by a catastrophic process. Means all of a sudden something has happened and then creation has mounted. Something has happened and then some crustal movements like earthquakes and some disturbances over the Earth's surface, and then all of a sudden somewhere there is a mountain or somewhere there is a depression, and depression is occupied by water, and now ocean has been created. So catastrophism is the reason of explanation to formation of landforms. Is a simple geological pre-conceptualization of those old classical people who started explaining in their level of knowledge at that time of the geological historical past. If you go to 4000 BC or if you go to 3000 BC or 2000 BC, the people who have been trying to explain what they used to see around, they used to see ocean, but they have not gone much into the deep into the sea. So they were thinking that probably if you go travel some distance, you will find monsters inside the sea. You will find that you may fall down from the earth to the space. So like this, different type of scientific speculations were there at that time. Similarly, also there was a basic theory of explanation of landform formation that was called as catastrophism. This particular topic explains about that. And to oppose to that, there is another group of people started thinking of that nothing is catastrophic. Nothing is catastrophic. Nothing is everything is not all of a sudden. There are continuous processes going on over the Earth's surface. What is this continuous process? If you see a river now, can you say that it is catastrophic? It is continuing now for years together. We have seen this river system of Godavari or Krishna or Kaveri right from the origin of the Indian subcontinent. It is going on. No major change has taken place except few changes on the course of the river at some points. Otherwise, the river is there and the landform formation with the river is also going on. So is it a catastrophic process? It is not a catastrophic process. We see the glaciers in the Himalayas. And these glaciers are not new. They have been formed right from the origin of the Himalayas. And the glaciers are shaping their valleys across the mountain slope. And continuously the process is going on. So it is a uniforming process, uniformitarianism process with occasional catastrophism, but major part is uniform. So there are two groups of people, they started arguing on the landform formation like this, that some people believed in catastrophism, some people believed in uniformitarianism. And that is how the geomorphology started looking into the explanations of origin of the landforms, because the very subject of geomorphology deals with understanding of origin of landforms, then description of landforms, then classification of landforms. So origin and description is supposed to be taken up by this. This is the old concept in which the people, when geography was not existing, geomorphology was not existing, people trying to explain the formation of these features, how a river is created, how a ocean is created, how a mountain is created, how a plain is created. So when there was exploration to that kind of knowledge, they used to relate it to some kind of catastrophic activity and explain, or some type of uniform process and explain. So this is how the development of this subject has taken place in the Greek and Roman periods, and those periods and the Arabian people of this during the BC period. And then gradually the approach to geomorphology started coming up. When people started learning geomorphology, they adopted a different way of exploring the knowledge. What is there? How to study the ocean. So people started entering into the ocean with the boat. And when they continued moving inside and inside, they see that they are not falling down, so it is going on. And then ultimately they thought that Earth is a spherical shape, so you will come down to the same place. That is how Magellan Drake was the navigator who circumnavigated the globe. Started from believing that yes, it is spherical, and then if you start moving from one point and then go around, then again you can come to the same point. That is what was proved by the Magellan Drake, the great explorer. Similarly, people thought of, like Columbus thought of, that yes, India is on the western side, so he moved towards North America and explored North America. Without knowing that it is North America, he thought that this is India. And that is how Red Indian name came for those areas. But ultimately, Vasco da Gama came to India and then discovered the path. So like this, so different type of land exploration, sea exploration started building of information for geomorphology, and different approaches people adopted at that time as methods of understanding geomorphology, some fieldwork methods, some exploration methods, some statistical methods, some mathematical methods, some astronomic methods of observation. So like this, there are different methods adopted in studying the geomorphology. So these are called as the approaches to geomorphology. And then historical development of all these things in a sequence, just like our history, modern history, then the medieval history, then the ancient history. Just it is a continuous process of development or change. Similar, geomorphology is also from a classical period to a period of Renaissance, then to a period of modern age. If you go to less than 1200 AD, that is a period of, we call it as a classical period. And then after 1200 up to 1600 or 1500, it is called as the period of Renaissance. And that is also in the historical general history also, it is a Renaissance period. That is the period when the Christianity dominated over the globe and the Western countries, and then the Christianity and the Bible started dictating all the science. Means what is written there in the Bible, people has to accept it. That is how Galileo lost his life, because he was put into prison because he started telling something beyond against the Bible as far as the Earth's origin is concerned, or the sun and earth relation was concerned. So like this, Pythagoras was also in problem. Copernicus was in problem because of their scientific innovations which went against the Bible. So that is called as a scientific retrogradation of the knowledge at that time. Predominance of the Bible and the writing of the Bible was supposed to be sacrosanct, and that is how the entire process of explanation of historical geomorphology and the development of geomorphology in different stages of development of the history. And coming to the present with the different scientific, different persons giving different scientific views, creating the subject as an independent branch of geomorphology within geography, and then contributing to different components of geomorphology like fluvial geomorphology or glacial geomorphology or Ulian geomorphology, like that, and how these things happen. So your history of development will relate to that. And as I have seen, your literature have been covering all these things much more in detail. So immediately you don't need any other book to read before completing this. So don't disbelieve on your materials. The materials are enough with literature, what it is required. And if you want to know more about, then after reading your materials, you can go for some specific books on specific topics where you find much more things. It is just like if I tell you, if you are interested to study cycle of erosion of Davis, here you will find 3 pages, 4 pages, 10 pages of description in your material. But if you go to the life and history of William Morris Davis, the book is of about 600 pages. Life and history of the geologist William Morris Davis and his theory of cycle of erosion. 600 pages the book covers. So, but there are interesting things over there if you are interested to study like this. If you go to Peng's study also, similarly, there are different people, there the compendium of their publications, the compendium of their knowledge base is being accumulated at different places in different books in much more in detail. So if you are interested, you can individually go to the different, that we can guide you at times when it is required. So this is about our unit 1, development of geomorphology. Then coming to the basic postulates in geomorphology, and that is geological timescale, catastrophism, uniformitarianism, and fundamental concepts. So in geomorphology, when we are studying about the landforms, there are 10 principles which are guiding the entire geomorphological understanding. 10 principles, fundamental concepts or 10 fundamental principles. What is the principle? The principle is the earth surface is acted upon by different agents of weathering erosion, but not necessarily with the same intensity. So the belief is the earth surface is acted upon by various agents and their processes to create different type of agents, landforms, but certainly with not in the same intensity. That means the processes which are operating over the earth surface are responsible for formation of the landforms, but we have to imagine that their intensity has varied over the geological past. Somewhere the volcanism has been very intense. Sometimes the earthquake activities have been more intense. Sometimes the rivers have been eroding much faster. Sometimes the glaciers have been more active and now it is less active. So like this, there is a variation in the intensity of their operation, but the same geomorphic processes which are operating now, that is a fundamental principle. The same geomorphic processes which are operating now are also operated in the past, were also operated in the past, but certainly not necessary with the same intensity. That means it is going against the views of this catastrophism and uniformitarianism, that you should not believe in catastrophism, you should not believe in uniformitarianism. These are the initial ideas that came to build up the subject in the classical period, but subsequently people have over the years has established that the same geological processes which are operating, volcanic eruption, earthquake, river action, wind action, glacial action, everything what is going on are there in the past also. But the intensity has differed in different geological times, depending on the favorable factors or unfavorable factors of operational process of those landforms. That is number 1. Then number 2 fundamental principle is most of the landforms are not older than Pleistocene, and major part of the Earth's surface covers landforms which are of the Pleistocene. So this is what is the second important concept. This concept explains that the landform that we are seeing has been altered over the years during the Pleistocene period to such an extent that on the surface of the earth, anything that we see is a change that has taken place during this Pleistocene period of 1 million years. And what has happened in the past are buried under this, which is not directly visible. So that is most of the landscape over the earth surface is not much older than the Pleistocene period. So you have to believe that if you go to any place and pick up a rock, you may see that that particular rock may have created in the geological past, in the Precambrian or Cambrian or Azoic period, but it has undergone changes in the subsequent periods, and presently also it has undergone through the present Pleistocene processes, and now it is available. So what you see is the imprint of the present Pleistocene process is more visible than the imprint or the evidences of the past. So like this is the second one. Understanding the geology. Geological understanding of the landforms provides a significance in understanding the geomorphology of a particular area. If you are trying to understand, this is the third important principle. Geology and structure is a dominant controlling factor in the evolution of landforms. So in the evolution of landform, if you do not take into consideration the geological structure and the processes which are operating, it is becoming difficult for you to interpret how the landform is being originated. So geological structure and processes are important in understanding the landforms. That means if you are trying to study the landforms over the Himalayas, you will definitely have to consider that the structure of the Himalayas is responsible for creation of such type of landforms. So if you see that on the foothill of the Himalayas, deposits are coming up because the mountain slope is like that. So it is not creating a flat plain like the Ganga plain or the Indus plain. Because there the plain is Indus or Ganga where the landscape is little different because the valley itself is geologically different. So there is a geology which is a dominant controlling factor in the evolution of landforms. If you go to the Eastern Ghats, you will find what is the geology responsible. The type of rock is condylite. So condylite bearing rocks or the high grade metamorphic rocks will shape the morphology of this area. So these rocks are supposed to act with the present day heat and present day cooling and present day rain and then percolation through the cracks and joints and breaking of the rocks in a way that is responsible to break the condylite rock. And then simultaneously igneous rocks are also supposed to be acting upon this particular process. So geology is a major controlling factor. This is the third important fundamental concept. Then the fourth important concept is landform is a function of structure, process, and stage was one of the doctrines of William Morris Davis. But in the fundamental concept, his doctrine was not accepted. The doctrine was changed to landform is a function of structure, process, and not stage. It is a structure, process, and time. Because people believe that it is not the stage of youth, maturity, old age that operates every time, everywhere. So in place of the stage, if you put the time, the landform is a function of structure, obviously, function of process, because the process will lead to a particular type of landform. Structure is going to control the landform to develop in a particular way. And then the time. That means how much time it has taken to operate that process. That is important, it is not the stage. The youth maturity in old age was a concept which was given by Davis, who was called also the father of modern geomorphology. The idea was also evolving from his time, carried over the geomorphology of the subject for 100 years to believe in this particular theory, but the theory ultimately was segregated. And the present day concept is not to accept that theory, but to accept with a change. The change is landform is a function of structure, process, and time. Okay. Then the next important fundamental principle is the landforms which are there will exhibit the characteristic features which will relate to the time of formation as an evidence. That means every rock which is on the surface of the earth must carry the imprints of its processes and the structure. That means if you hold a sand particle from a river bank, it is going to indicate that sand, how it has been produced in that particular valley. If you are going to pick up a boulder from Talcher area, it is going to indicate that it has been formed from the glacial time. If you go to the Similipal hills and to the top of the Similipal hills, you will find volcanic rocks, which are called as volcanic glass. A kind of volcanic rock which will be as smooth as glass. So you have seen igneous rocks which are not smooth, not very smooth, not very polished. The naturally available igneous rock granite is absolutely coarse on the surface. If you touch on the surface, it will be rough, and it is not polished. But if you go to basalt, it is slightly polished. But if you see to those rocks in the Similipal hills, you will find some of the rocks which are as soft as glass. It is dark, but it is like glass. So then the question will come to your mind that how these rocks were formed in this particular place. What is the formation process for this? We see on the river bed, boulders are coming in a rounded shape, polished shape, because the boulders are going round the round over the valley, and then by the rubbing action or by the abrasion action, they are being polished by the rolling process of the transportation of the river water, and they are getting polished. Kintu Similipal hill top ରେ ମେଘାସନୀ ପାହାଡ଼ ଉପରେ ଯଦି ତମେ ଦେଖିବ ସେ ରକ୍ କୁ ଆଉ ତମେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଭାବି ପାରିବନି ଯେ ଇଏ କେମିତି ହେଲା So obviously, if you are intelligent enough to know and you have a background to this, then you will try to relate that this particular type of rocks are formed in volcanic lava which condenses inside water. ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗାରେ volcanic eruption ହେଇକି ସମୁଦ୍ର ଭିତରେ କୌଣସି ଜାଗାରେ କି ପାଣି ଭିତରେ କୌଣସି ଜାଗାରେ volcanic eruption ହୁଏ ତାହେଲେ ସେ ଯୋଉ hot magma ତକ ପାଣି ଭିତରକୁ ଆସିବ suddenly cool ହେଇଯିବ and this sudden cooling is going to make it a rock which is called volcanic glass which is as soft as glass. ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଜିନିଷଟା ହେଲା, so that is what is, that means that particular rock carries the imprint of the geomorphic processes by which it has been formed. So everywhere, whenever you will go to try to study the landforms, every landform are likely to indicate you some of the evidences which are responsible for its formation. So each landform carried some of the imprints of its processes and the time span in which it has been. So like this, there are 10 fundamental principles. Based on these 10 fundamental principles, you can interpret any landform that you are going to study. So if you go to a river valley, try to study the landforms. If you go to the same river valley in the mountain range, same river valley into the middle part of the river or same river valley in the near the seashore at the mouth, you will find the materials along the river bed are different. On the top of the mountain, you will find the boulders, rubbles, huge fragmented rocks running down the slope, and the river will be passing through that during the dry season. When there is a rainy season, then this water will be rushing over that and those rocks will be going round and descending on the valley. But after some time, when the mountain stage is over and enters into the plain stage, all these sediments are deposited as alluvial fans at the descending area. And then alluvial fans will be there extending over. Just like if you come from the Himalayas towards the Indo-Gangetic plains, Tarai region is the region where all the sediments have been distributed coming from the coming from the Himalayan region. And that is the Tarai region where all these sediments have been distributed. And coming down of Tarai region, you will find this Khadar, Bhangar and Haber type of soils, which are different type of soils of different thickness, of different time origin. And that is how this Khadar, Bhangar and Haber are these soils which are enriching this landscape of Haryana, Punjab, and then in Pakistan also, because Indus River is carrying those sediments, and then has been responsible for a good agricultural output with huge plains that they have been creating with this. And every year also some amount of sediments are getting deposited and the flushing of the sediments are taking place with the flooding water. Just like in our flood areas also, or in the deltaic areas also, the same thing happens. Alluvial deposits seems to take place when there is a flooding. And then after 2-3 years, when then another flood will come, again the old materials will be washed away, new materials will be deposited. So renewal of the fertility of the soil takes place. So this is how the fundamental concept, there are 10 fundamental concepts which are explaining that origin is related or guided by these principles. So you have to, using these principles, you can interpret how a landform has been formed at a particular stage. If you look to the landform in any size, you may look to the landform from the sand particle, dust particle, or a silt particle, or a clay particle, to a landform of a huge mountain like Everest also, or a huge trench like Mariana Trench also. Any way you look into the landform, there is a type of origin, there is a type of process responsible for that, and that particular feature also is supposed to carry some of the evidences of the processes of the time when it has been formed. This is what is. So like this, there are certain fundamental principles. I told about 5 or 6, another 4 or 5 we will read from the materials. Okay, this is unit 2. Then unit 3 is geomorphic system and concepts, general systems theory, form and process in geomorphology, concept of equilibrium in landform evolution. So this is again the conceptual part of understanding the evolution of landforms, how the landforms are evolving. So general systems theory tells that there is a systematic way of looking into or investigating into the origin of the landforms. So that is what we call it as a system theory, where there is a input and output systems. Input are certain factors, and then it is being processed, and output are certain output factors, output process or output materials. So this is the way in which geomorphic theories are also present. A scientific approach of studying the landforms is not just because it is a youth stage or maturity or old age, or it is a time-bound activity. It is now being studied in the form of a systems theory. Systems theory means providing a lot of input. Providing a lot of input means, suppose you are in a catchment basin, a river catchment. So in the river catchment, you find how much length of rivers are there. What is the slope of those rivers? How much is the amount of carrying capacity of these rivers? Then how much will be the, based on the slope and based on the amount of water that will be present and possible amount of water present, what is the velocity of that and how much sediment it will carry, and then what is the amount of sediment it is supposed to discharge at its river mouth, is a kind of estimation, theoretical estimation. Nobody is going to measure all the rivers uh, of a basin, and in all the rivers how much water is going or how much sediment is going and how much going at the surface dissolved forms, how much going in a floating form, or how much of sediment is going in a bed load form. So everything is being sampled out at different places, and based on the sample figures, then they are simulated and with certain kind of principles to average it out and then find out that yes, this is a systems theory of explanation of what is the water yield of a catchment after a particular amount of rain. Suppose rainfall is coming up into a catchment basin. So that amount of rainfall will be coming, suppose 10 inches of rainfall has happened over a catchment basin. That 10 amount of 10 centimeter of rainfall or 10 inches of rainfall over that basin means how much is the volume of water that has been collected in this. But how much is coming at the river mouth out of this basin is to be calculated based on how much is going to be percolated, how much is going to be evaporated, how much is going to be transferred, how much the plants will be taking away, how much the porosity of the soil will take away, and then what will be the water that is naturally to be yield at the after going all this. So this is what is called a systems approach, taking a number of parameters and controlling to find the controlling the factors and finding out a common output. It is just like that if you think of in a different way in a family also, if there is an income and that income is spent for various purposes and ultimately something is left out, how to estimate that and then how to make a permutation combination, that where you should reduce your expenditure, where you should increase your expenditure, and what is your objective of expending all these things and what is supposed to be your output. So that is the way in which persons are looking into the different type of structural parameters, non-structural parameters, process parameters, so many. There will be hundreds of parameters to be fed into the computer and then some output is to be generated. And that is how our flood prediction takes place. The flood water, how much of flood water is going to be discharged at a particular point, has anybody observed with some measurements? No, that's the calculations based on samples. And those samples are based on also again in the laboratories. Laboratories testings, and then that testing has been simulated for a larger one. A smaller one is simulated to a larger one, and then accordingly the output is also larger. And that is how the general systems theory is explaining the geomorphic systems in a much better way. Okay. Then we are coming to the unit 4. Unit 4 is, unit 3 we have seen a system theory. Then another important concept is form and process in geomorphology. Initially what happened, people started observing things and then started explaining. Observing thing means if you go to the coast, suppose I am interested in studying the coastal landforms. I am going to the coast, see what are the landforms available. Somewhere it is a rock, somewhere it is a reef, somewhere it is a beach of sand, somewhere it is a sand dune, somewhere like this. And then I started explaining that, yes, this is how it must have formed, this is how it must have formed, this is what is called as a kind of understanding based on which we are trying to without any measurements. I am not doing any measurements. I am just looking to the shape, size, position, location, related factors, and trying to explain this. But nowadays, people are not very much scientifically thinking of this. This becomes a little unscientific. It has to be more scientific. So they are trying to measure the forms and processes in geomorphology. That means what is the rate at which the erosion is taking place, so how much of a material is going to be the output, and what is the remnant that is going to give a shape. So this is what is called form and process. So a particular form will evolve with certain processes, how to measure the processes and its intensity, its velocity or its magnitude, and then how it is supposed to be related to the form of the landform. Because if the river basin is a landform, then this is a very process of understanding and form relationship. So if you go to any other kind of landform, wherever you try to look at what is the process and what is the form left out. Suppose you go to your Eastern Ghat areas, into some mountain peaks, and try to observe that this mountain is having a kind of morphological expression like this, with a slope of such amount of slope, and then a different type of rock decomposition taking place in such a way. How to explain these forms based on the processes? And those processes will be not by observation, it is by measurements, experiments. So what is the rate of slope? What is the rate of sliding of the rocks? And what is the rate of percolation of the rocks? And like this, what is the cohesive force? And many other parameters will be fed into that, and then the form is to be the output. So process and forms are quantified to give us a understanding of the origin of the landforms or classification of landforms or its morphological characterizations. So these geomorphic systems and concepts try to explain the better understanding of landforms by these processes, not by the cognitive process of just looking at and then explaining, which the old people have been doing. When the system was not developed, computer was not there, data processing was not there, such a huge amount of data was not possible to handle. The people were comfortable with the visual observation and then simulation and ideology formation, that yes, it must have happened like this. Then the concept of equilibrium in landform in the evolutionary process. Another important idea of landform is that this evolutionary process continues till a equilibrium comes into the landscape, and then the equilibrium is lost, and then again the process starts bringing towards an equilibrium. So this is what is the conceptual go of the landform process, creation of the landforms. Suppose a mountain is there. In course of time, the mountain is going to be eroded. At the peak also it is going to be eroded. At the valley also it is going to be eroded. So this mountain will slowly eroding after eroding, and then it will become closer to a plain area. So ultimately it will come to a plain area, and then the erosion will stop, because no other condition of slope is available that the mountain is going to be eroded. So then what will happen? Then it will be, after erosion, deposition will take place. So a concept of deposition, erosion will lead towards the equilibrium. So this is what is called the equilibrium in the landform evolutionary process, and that will continue for a longer period of time. And then again, by some structural processes or catastrophic processes, if the equilibrium changes, again the process of weathering erosion will continue to again rebuild the equilibrium. So this is what is the tendency of formation of the landforms. So origin related landform are based on this kind of general systems theory, form and process concepts, or concept of equilibrium. People try to study the landform in these views, in these ways. Okay, then we are coming to the fourth unit, the theories of development of major landforms, where we have already discussed yesterday Earth's internal structure, isostasy, eustasy, and then continental drift and plate tectonics, which we have already discussed. Isostasy about the balance, and eustasy related to the imbalance. The mental, these disturbances which are related to. Yes, anybody has to ask anything?
Good evening, sir. Sir, can you
Yes.
please again just in a small manner explain about UTSC?
Used isostasy is a kind of disturbances on the surface of the earth that leads to a equilibrium in the landform available over the earth surface. Means I was explaining yesterday that how the landforms are existing over the mantle, because outer crust is a solidified material, and this material is remaining over the viscous mantle. So when it is remaining over the viscous mantle, can we believe that all these are in a equilibrium over there? Because unless there is a equilibrium, the landforms cannot remain. They will be non-static. They will be dynamic, continuously on movement. But the continuous movements are not going, and there are movements going on at some places because of the plate motion. But the basic equilibrium remains between the landscape and resting over the Earth's interior. So this concept was telling about that how they are in a equilibrium condition. And eustacy tells about how these conditions are disturbed by different type of forces which are responsible for this. That is what is opposite to the isostasis, eustacy. Somewhere it is stagnant or somewhere it is unstable. So stability and instability are some of the basic concepts that goes with the eustacy. Isostacy is the equilibrium condition that is being maintained. But this equilibrium condition again goes towards inequilibrium with some kind of processes which are responsible for disturbing this equilibrium. Earthquake happens. 2004 earthquake that took place in the Sunda Trench that brought tsunami in the month of December. Huge tsunami waves came. But what has happened? The crust has gone down in the ocean by about 7 to 8 meters below the present position. Before the earthquake position, what it was, depth ଯେତିକି ଥିଲା ସେଇ ଜାଗାରେ ocean ର ଆହୁରି 8 ଫୁଟ ତଳକୁ ଦବିଗଲା ଗୋଟେ plate, and that is how the water started moving in the form of a tsunami, but it disturbed the earth. So earth axis ଉପରେ ବି ତାର ପ୍ରଭାବ ପଡିଲା, जो earth जो axis relating considering the north pole, south pole and the center of the earth जो axis ଥିଲା, ସେ axis ଉପରେ ବି ତାର tilting ର effect ଏତେ ପଡିଲା because of the dislocation of the materials on the earth. এই ଜିନିଷଟା ତମେ ଭାବି ପାରିବନି ହଠାତ୍ ଯେ ଆର୍ଥର ଯୋଉ ଯେତିକି ଜିନିଷ ଗୋଟେ ସ୍ପେରିକାଲ ସିଷ୍ଟମଟା ରହିଛି and it is moving in the space, it is in a state where equilibrium is required with all these materials, and that equilibrium is sometimes lost. So that is what is related to eustacy. So eustacy related to the disturbances which are caused by different internal processes, and explaining about how this isostacy is disturbed and again the equilibrium is being built up. ତେଣୁ ତାପରେ କ'ଣ ହେଲା ନା ତାପରେ ହେଲା କ'ଣ ଯେତିକି ଦବିଲା ପରେ then there has been relative displacements at other places, and that led to an equilibrium. ସେ ବି equilibrium ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ଆସିଲାନି, ସେଥିପାଇଁ କ'ଣ ହୁଏ ଗୋଟେ earthquake ସରିଲା ପରେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଯାଏନି, ତାପରେ there is a series of small earthquakes also, the tremors used to come and they settle the entire system in a way that again the equilibrium is rebuilt. So this is what is the concept of eustacy. ठीक ଅଛି, ତେଣୁ isostacy ଆଉ eustacy ଭିତରେ this is what is the basic difference fundamentally. ତେଣୁ ସେଇ ଜିନିଷ ଏକ ଅଛି ତମର ମ୍ୟାଟେରିଆଲରେ ଦେଖିବ, ଆଉ ଯଦି ଦରକାର ପଡେ ଆଉ ଟିକେ କାଲିକି ଅଧିକା ଯଦି ତମକୁ ଦରକାର ହବ, I think I will explain little more about this by what are the processes and how it is happening. Okay, ତାପରେ continental drift ଆଉ plate tectonics କାଲି ଆମେ discuss କରିଥିଲେ already. ତାପରେ ଆମର ଯୋଉ tectonic process ରେ landform formation, ଏଇ ଯୋଉ earth movements, ଆମର earth movement ଟା ସାଧାରଣତଃ over the earth surface ଦି ପ୍ରକାର ହୁଏ, ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା orogenic earth movements, ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା apiorogenic earth movements. ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ orogenic earth movements ତମେ ଯୋଉଟା ପଢୁଛ ସେଇଟା ହେଲା it is a part of the isostatic imbalance. ଯଦି orogenic କୋଉଠି ହବ ତାହେଲେ isostatic imbalance destroy ହବ, ପୁଣି ଆଉଥରେ equilibrium ଆଡକୁ ସେ ଚାଲିବ. ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା apiorogenic movements, ଯୋଉଟା କି vertical upliftment and downwarping ହବ earth surface ରେ, and then it will be leading towards some kind of disturbances, some types of faults, cracks, displacements, and then again the rebuild of the equilibrium by formation of the large land masses. ତେଣୁ apiorogeny ଆଉ orogeny ଭିତରେ difference ହେଲା, orogeny is related to two compressive forces creating a mountain system. ଦିଟା plate ର movement ବା ଦିଟା block ର movement ହୁଏ horizontally, they compress each other and form at the middle one mountain system. Apiorogeny ହେଲା, there is a subsidence of a land at some place or upliftment of a land at some place, and then there is a dislocation along the joints and along the faults or cracks through which upliftment will take place, and then again the equilibrium will be built to rest in equilibrium condition. That is what is epiorogenic and orogenic movements. So all mountain building movements are orogenic movements. All continental building movements are called as epiorogenic movements. And in acquisition, the isostasis is related to orogeny, eustasis is related to epiorogeny, and a relationship. Then landforms associated with epiorogenic and orogenic movements. Orogenic movements re kon hobo? What are the landforms? When the two blocks of landmass will collide each other or compress each other by some forces, so there will be formation of mountain. There will be formation of folding in the rocks. So there will be different types of foldings. So rocks can also fold like a rubber band. And that folding is available if you can see in the mountain at the places where the roads are being cut with the cut of the mountains, you will find the rocks are in a folding stage. ସେ ଜାଗା ଦେଖାଯାଏ ସେଠି କେତେବେଳେ କୌଣସି ଜାଗାରେ ଯଦି ଯାଉଛ ପାହାଡ ଦେହରେ ହିଲ ର ମାନେ ଇଏରେ ଘାଟି ରାସ୍ତାରେ, you can observe at some point where the fresh rock cut happened. You can see the rock layers in a folded form at different places. So rocks are folded because of the horizontal layering. Kind of rock के पहले fold form रे settling करेनी. Rock सब बड़े horizontal form रे settling करे, by compressive forces they get uplifted. So they form the foldings, and foldings are classified into declinal foldings. केतोळे एमती हेकी थाए उपरु crest, केतोळे तळुकु crest हेकी रहे ताको कहते synclinal folds, केतोळे तार horizontal हेकी रहे crest टा एमती बुली की थाए horizontal हेकी, that is called and declinal, synclinal and thrust fold बोले ताको कहा जाए. So that is a different type of folding. तापर जदि आउ further folding हला ताले pressure जदि रहिला ताले कोन होबो ना, there will be a crack on the that horizontal fold and a block, outer block will move towards. तो ये जो movement हेले कोन होबो ना, जो core area रे जो rock थिबो से area जगह बाहर को expose हे जिवो, जो जगह younger rocks on the surface they will go down. माने करो एटा गोटे fold हेची, if you see that there is a U shape, ए U shape टा तो टर्न कर देलो ताहले एटा horizontal हे गेला. जदि तार crest टा गोटे साइड को रहिला आ से crest पाकु भांगी की the outer layer is moving away from the crest. ताले कोन हो से core area रो जो rock जाके expose हो, core area रो rock जाके expose हेले हमें on the surface जेतोले geological study करिबा सेतोले देखियो on the surface there is a old rock and below the surface there is a young rock, जोटा कि theoretically हबा कथा नो, किंतु केतोले हुए जेतोले ए टाइप रो folding हे की movement हे. So there are different type of landforms which are associated with these orogenic movements. Himalaya रे ए टाइप रो movement हे छी, जो थी कोन हे छी ना हमरो folding हे छी. folding हला परे आम साइड को से fold टा बुली आसी, बुली आसला परे कोन हे छी आम साइड को स्लाइड करी के आसी की लैंडफॉर्म जाको तळ को पड़ी छी. तेणु ऊपर माउंटेन ऊपर वर्तमान बहुत जगह रे ओल्ड रॉक जाको एक्सपोज हे छी, प्रेजेंट रॉक जाको यंग रॉक जाको सब जगह सबमर्ज हे जाय छी. सो एट टाइम्स यू विल फाइंड, सो सेति पे कोन होची ना हमको सुविधा रे जो फॉसिल जाको मिलु छी ऑफ द डेथिस सी इज अवेलेबल फ्रॉम द कोर एरिया ऑफ द माउंटेन. और से कोर एरिया रॉक जाको वर्तमान एक्सपोज हे की रही छी on many of the peak areas. Then these are the type of foldings. Then the faultings are of different types are also created. गोटे नॉर्मल फॉल्ट जोटा कि दीटा ब्लॉक भीतर फॉल्ट है कि गोटे ब्लॉक तळु मूव करिवो आ गोटे ब्लॉक ऊपर को मूव करिवो. So this is how one block goes down, one block goes up, and then the crack develops in between. On the normal fault तार जदि opposite way रे movement हला ताहले it is a reverse fault. तापर जदि शिफ्ट करी के आसला then it is called as a thrust fault. So a type रो है कि there are different kind of faultings also. The landforms associated with orogenic epiorogenic movements relates to the formation of different type of folds, different type of faults, different type of cracked joints, and then different type of landforms associated with these movements. And it has orogenic movements. Epiorogenic movements formation of continents and ocean basins. जोटा कि हमर continental drift process रही छी, it is a vertical upliftment of our जदि plate टा गोटे move कला on the surface. If the North American plate is moving towards west, तापर कोन that is a horizontal movement होउची, but simultaneously there is a vertical upliftment also, or somewhere there is a vertical downwarping also. Then a type of landform creation ହେଇଛି କିମ୍ବା volcanic eruption ହେଇକି ବେଳେବେଳେ upliftment ହେଇଛି, earthquake ହେଇକି ବେଳେବେଳେ upliftment ହେଇଛି, ଗୋଟେ portion ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ portion ରେ depression ହେଇଛି. So these are all related to this epirogenic movements across the globe and creating different type of blocks as କହନ୍ତି ଆମର hogback structures, ମାନେ ଆଗକୁ ଡୋମ୍ ଭଳିଆ ହେଇକି ଥିବ ସେଇ ଟାଇପ ର ଜିନିଷ. ଆମର ଶିମିଳିପାଳ ହିଲ୍ସ ର କଣ ହେଇଛି? It is a upliftment from the sea by the volcanic eruption. So when part of Mayurbhanj, Similpal Hills, including Baleswar, were inside the sea, that was the time when volcanic eruption took place inside the. କିନ୍ତୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ continental drifting process ରେ ଇଏ ଆଡକୁ migrate କରି ଆସିଲା, ତାପରେ gradually the sea has receded and the mountain has been exposed. And that is how we see the Similpal Hills now on the surface, but initially it was inside the sea. Before the Pleistocene period, এটা sea ভিতরে ଥିଲା. এই Pleistocene period ରେ ହିଁ ये आस्ते आस्ते जो last glaciation phase रे sea has been moved out. ଯେମିତି ଆମର କୋଣାର୍କ ପାଖରେ ସମୁଦ୍ର ଘୁଞ୍ଚି ଯାଇଛି 3 କିଲୋମିଟର ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯାଇ ଚନ୍ଦ୍ରଭାଗା ପାଖରେ ପହଞ୍ଚିଛି ସମୁଦ୍ର, କିନ୍ତୁ କୋଣାର୍କ ତିଆରି ହେଲା ବେଳକୁ କୋଣାର୍କ ପାଖରେ ଥିଲା, ମନ୍ଦିର ପାଖରେ ଥିଲା, ସେମିତି ବାଲେଶ୍ୱର ସେଠି ବି ଶିମିଳିପାଳ ହିଲ୍ସ ଯାକ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଥିଲା ସମୁଦ୍ର, ସେ ଯାକ ବି ସମୁଦ୍ର ଘୁଞ୍ଚି ଯାଇଛି ସେଠି ବହୁତ ବେଶୀ. So this is how this epirogenic orogenic movements creates different type of landforms. तार description सही unit रे तमे पाइबो. Tectonic processes and landforms too एथरे कोन होइछि ना volcanism, and how volcano is an agent of or a volcano is a process of formation of landforms and the distribution of volcanoes across the globe. कोटि कोटि volcanoes देखा जाए, की टाइप रो volcanoes अछि, केते टाइप रो volcano formations हुए on the surface of the earth, कोटा स्ट्रम्बुलियन टाइप, कोटा पिलियन टाइप, कोटा इफ्यूसिव टाइप, विभिन्न प्रकार गोटी बहुत जोर रे बस्ट करके आसीबो, किंतु लाभा नथिबो, खाली dust materials, fumes, and then water particles will be coming up, and cloud will be, lot of cloud will be coming up. आगे जगह रे it will create the splinters, माने निया हुला जगह जेमति बाहर को सो बिछरी की पडुची बाडा रे जेमति पडे, सेमति there will be eruption of the magma. There is a type of, that is a pillion type of eruption. And different प्रकार ना दिया है जी. There are different types of volcanoes, and the different type of volcanoes used to create different type of landscape. जो volcano जेमते तार material सेमते सेते दूर को पड़िबो, आ सेते बड़ बड़ material आसीबो, that the products आसे जो volcano lava जो आसे condense हुए air को जाई की तापर cooling है की पड़े, तार पड़ला पर आसे cool हुए, ये कौन इसको विभिन्न size रो अछि, scories, lapillis, bombs एमति करके विभिन्न प्रकार shape रो ना दिया है जी. You will find a different type of volcanoes, different type of cones, volcanic cones, different type of volcanic landscape, and within the volcanic landscape also you find different type of shape and size of the different type of boulders and rock, fragmented rocks, and then volcanic rock plains also. What is माने volcano पाखरे जदि लाभा तक गडी के आसी पडिछि, आ ता सेते then it will create a type of landscape which is parallel to the mountain. जो deposition है, से deposition अनुसार the slope will be there. किंतु तापर आस्ते आस्ते gradually से erosion हबो. But if you think of another type of erosion, that is effusive eruption, जोटा कि हमरो Deccan trap रे हिची. Deccan trap रे हिची केतेबेले जेतेबेले when India was hitting against the North Indian, sorry, the Asiatic plate. Asia जेतेबेले Indian plate आसी धक्का खाइला सेठी, से समय रे because of the pressure of exertion on the Indian plate टा छोटो थिला, Asian plate टा बहुत बड़ो. Asian plate रे किछि change हलानी, there was nothing on this. But Indian plate suffered a lot of cracks at different places. तेणु सेही समय रे हमर जो cracks develop हेछि Indian plate रे, सेठी बहुत गुडे volcanic eruption हेछि, and many places have experienced volcanic eruption. ता भितर Deccan lava रे maximum eruption हेतिला, effusive eruption, तापर हेतिला Rajmal hills रे हेतिला, तापर volcanic eruption हेतिला हमर Similipal रे, तापर हेतिला Andaman Nicobar island रे, तापर हेतिला Gujarat coast रे. So these are the areas where the volcanic eruption took place during the time when Indian plate was colliding with the Asiatic plate. तेणु एमती विभिन्न प्रकार लैंडफॉर्म सही ता भीतर कोन है जो लावा डिपोजिट हुए से भी विभिन्न प्रकार लैंडफॉर्म क्रिएट करे. कोठी डम माने डंप हो जाए डोम भलिया क्रिएटिंग पैथोलिथ्स, आ कोठी कोठी लेयर भीतर डिपोजिट हो जाए माने डोम भलिया, दैट इज कॉल्ड लेकोलिथ्स. एमती विभिन्न प्रकार तापर कोठी गोटे पिलर भलिया मैग्मा तक दीटा रॉक भीतर जॉइंट भीतर भांगी की से भीतर पस जाय थाए, जस्ट लाइक ए स्ट्रेट यूनिट that called the volcanic dikes and sills. जोटा जदि vertical हला तले ताको कहला dike, जदि दीटा बैंड रॉक लेयर भीतर जदि रहि गला तले ताको कहंती sill. एमति विभिन्न प्रकार नेम्स सब रही छि. When you go through the literature, you will try to know the different volcanic सहित distribution of volcano, different volcanic crater related landforms, volcanic eruption related landforms, and then other types of eruption and then subsequent changes, and different type of volcanic magma condensation and landforms in water over the land. ये सब जिनस रही छि चैप्टर भीतर तार डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन भीतर यूनिकनेस ला कोन ऑल दीज आर फाउंड इन द मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट हला जदि प्लेट बाउंड्री जगह देखा जाए कारण से जगह रे ही द कनेक्शन ऑफ द प्लेट्स टेक्स प्लेस विथ द मेंटल तेणु से जगह हला हमर वीक जोन तेणु हमर वीक जोन रे ही साधारणतः ए जिंस हुए तेणु सी गला गोटे तापर अर्थक्वेक भी सेमती व्हाट इज द कॉज ऑफ द अर्थक्वेक ला शेकिंग ऑफ द क्रस्ट or the vibration of the crust because of some release of energy accumulated by inequilibrium. गोटे जगह इक्विलिब्रियम अच्छी सेटा लॉस्ट हला तापर ग्रेजुअल इनइक्विलिब्रियम बड़ी बड़ी चलला तण देयर इज अ टेंशन बिल्ट अप जेंति गोटे रबर को तमे टाणी टाणी नेले जे टेंशन बिल्ट अप हुए गोटे स्टेज आसले छिंडी जिवो सेम ते हमर रॉक लेयर जगह सेम टेंशन बिल्ट हुए एट डिफरेंट प्लेसेस बाय वेरियस रीजंस इनसाइड और ओवर द surface of the earth some changes or inside the changes एक ही रॉक लेयर जगह कोन हुए ना टेंशन को आसे टेंशन को आसला पर से क्रैक कर जाए क्रैक करि गला पर से क्रैक रे देयर इज displacement of rock and simultaneously shaking of the crust that leads to the formation of earthquakes. ये जो earthquake formation हुए से भी सेमते हमर प्लेट बाउंड्री से तो सब जगह associated most of the plate boundaries are carrying the earthquakes and most of the weak zones of the earth crust जो कि रही छि अगरु old cracks रही छि of the previous geological periods से जगह भी बेले बेले earthquake zone भीतर को आसे तो earthquake रो distribution and then how it is related to the plate tectonics और तार impact रे कोन हुई ए सब जिंस को ए भीतर अछि टेक्टोनिक प्रोसेसेस लैंडफॉर्म्स 2 रे तापर लैंडफॉर्म रेगला unit 6 तापर unit 7 रसला weathering. So on the surface of the earth changes are taking place by agents but there are certain changes which are taking place by a process called weathering. Weathering is a process of change of the rocks in situ माने जोठी रॉक अछि से जगह रे किछटा चेंज होची by a physical process or a chemical process or a biological process. So that is what is decay or disintegration of the rocks and there is subsequent changes. जोटा को हमें देखु जे बस में रास्ता कटर गला लो देखियो गोटे पहाड़ अछि पहाड़ रे पत्थर जगह सब भांगी गलानी आस्ते आस्ते भांगी भांगी तळे पड़ी जमी छि. So that is a process of physical weathering of the rocks. The same there are places where chemical weathering is also taking place. जोटे कि बारे अंडरग्राउंड वाटर जाउछि लाइमस्टोन एरिया रे रॉक जक डिसॉल्व करूछि माने कैल्शियम बाइकार्बोनेट फॉर्मेशन करूछि से जक डिसॉल्व होई कि पानी रे बोई कि पड़ोछि एंड द केव इज क्रिएटेड तापर जाय गोटे जगह डिपोजिट होला पर ए जो कैल्शियम बाइकार्बोनेट जक जक सुपर सैचुरेटेड हो जाउछि पानी पड़ला बेले तासरे ड्रॉप ड्रॉप होई पड़ुछि पड़ी कि से जगह सब केव भीतर ऊपर तळ को पड़ी कि ग्रेजुअली से जगह आडे पिलर वाला स्ट्रक्चर तयारी करूछि द स्टैलेक्टाइट्स एंड स्टैलेग्माइट्स हुआ जाए ए टाइप ऑफ फीचर्स है कि किंतु बट वेदरिंग इज not related to transportation of materials. Weathering रे transportation हुए नहीं weathering is breaking of the rocks or decay and disintegration of the rocks by physical process or by chemical process or by biological process. ये तीनटा प्रोसेस रे जदी कोन से जगह रे रॉक जदी सही जगह रे डिकम्पोज हुए कि डिके हुए कि भागे कि ब्रेक करे और देयर आर कंडीशंस ऑफ ब्रेकिंग गोटे केमति ब्रेक करिवो कारण हमर सब जो खरा होची रात रे ठंडा होची खरा होची रात रे ठंडा होची तनो हमर जो रॉक जगह रे मिनरल्स अछि से जगह हीटिंग होची हीटिंग हला पर से जगह क्रैक डेवलप करूची क्रैक डेवलप कला पर वर्षा दिन पानी से क्रैक रे पसची से क्रैक पानी जगह रे इरोजन करी कि तार क्रैक जगह वाइड करूची वाइड कला पर गोटे ब्लॉक रे डिवाइड हो जाउछन तापर से ब्लॉक जगह खसी जाउची तळु तेणु जॉइंट पैटर्न ऊपर डिपेंड करूची रॉक रो की टाइप रो रॉक तेणु की टाइप रो जॉइंट अछि तेणु की टाइप रो कोठी ब्लॉक बोले खंड खंड भागुची कोठे पियाज चपा बोले भागुची पिलिंग एक्शन होची so it depends on the type of joints which have developed in the formation of the rock then yaku kahanti in situ decay or decomposition of the rocks are called as weathering फिजिकल वेदरिंग रे कोन हुए रॉक भांगिबार दीटा जिंस हला गोटे डेजर्ट रे भांगे केमती हीटिंग और कूलिंग है डे टाइम हीटिंग 45 डिग्री नाइट टाइम कूलिंग 20 डिग्री सब दिन जदी गोटे ऑब्जेक्ट जदी एमती हीट हबो कूल हबो ताले जो एक्सपेंशन कंट्रैक्शन हुए इन कोर्स ऑफ टाइम इट इज गोइंग टू ब्रेक so that is what is block weathering बोली तक कहा जाए but it is peeling action बोली कहा जाए but there are various other ways of disintegration of rocks that is physical weathering chemical weathering हला by chemical action water is a dissolving substance for many of the rocks and minerals बहुत गुड़े रॉक मिनरल तादरे डिकम्पोज होती पानी रे बुडन पानी रे डिसॉल्व होती डिसॉल्व होला परे ग्रेजुअली इरोजन हेकी गोटे टाइप रो मटेरियल पळे आ गोटे टाइप रो मटेरियल रहि जाय तने इग्नियस रॉक जका हमर जतरा केमिकल वेदरिंग प्रोसेस रे जाय बहुत समय कोन हेची ना से कन्वर्टेड इनटू लेटराइट्स लेटराइट बदले कोन हेची दा देरु हमर एनरिचमेंट हे जायची आयरन सब्सटेंसेस फेरिक ऑक्साइड तक पानी रे पळेची पानी रे पळे की होलो सब करी सब लेटराइट फॉर्मेशन कर देची आ कोर एरिया तक छाड़ देची आ के जगह रे कोन हेची ना कंडीशंस आर सुटेबल वेयर दिस ग्रेनाइट रे तीन प्रकार मिनरल अछि ओटला हमर क्वार्टजाइट फेल्डस्पार एंड सैंड रिलेटेड जो जाक क्वार्टजाइट आउ फेल्डस्पार ये दीटा हला डोमिनेंट मिनरल तपर माइका जोटा चिक 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 करे ये तीनटा इंपोर्टेंट मिनरल ता भीतर अछि क्वार्ट्ज फेल्डस्पार एंड माइका क्वार्ट्ज हला हमरो सैंड रिलेटेड तपर फेल्डस्पार हला हमरो जो माने सिल्ट और क्ले रिलेटेड मिनरल्स हाइड्रोक्साइड्स ऑफ डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ कैल्शियम मैग्नीशियम पोटेशियम ये जगह सब जो कि क्ले हो जाए जाको नहीं कि हमर पोर्सिलेन कप्स प्लेट्स जक सब तैयारी करन साकु फाइन करी रिफाइन करी तेनो ये जगह अछि ये जतोले भांगले को जगह रे फेल्डस्पार अधिका अछि फेल्डस्पार पळेला ये अनरिच ही रह गेला क्वार्टजाइट रो सैंड रह गेला ओ जगह रे सैंड पळेला ये क्ले रह गेला जो क्ले रह गेला सेटा क्ले डिपॉजिट हेकी पछु बाहरला जे क्ले डिपॉजिट जो नहीं कि लोग जो क्ले जो विभिन्न प्रकार मटेरियल्स तैयारी कले सो इट बिकम्स ए क्ले माइनिंग एरिया गोटे जगह एनरिच हेची एमती बहुत जगह रे जोठी हेची ए टाइप रो सिचुएशन रे हेची तो केमिकल वेदरिंग लीड्स टू डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ फॉर्मेशन जेमते हमरो लाइमस्टोन रॉक रो फॉर्मेशन बाय केमिकल वेदरिंग दैट इज आल्सो ए केमिकल वेदरिंग प्रोसेस देन हाइड्रो माने वाटर एंड आयरन मटेरियल से जगह डिकम्पोज हेकी हमरो साउथ ओडिशा वेस्टर्न ओडिशा रे हमर जो हेची बॉक्साइट डिपॉजिट्स and again the weathering of the igneous rocks has taken away the silt the क्वार्टजाइट जो सैंड रिलेटेड मिनरल जाको पड़े छी और बाकी सिटी एनरिचमेंट हे जाई छी ए जो बॉक्साइट रिलेटेड बॉक्साइट माने हमर कोन है एल्युमिनियम रिलेटेड एंड जो एल्युमिनियम हाइड्रोक्साइड जो डस्ट पार्टिकल्स जाको रही गला igneous rock रे से जगह रे कंसंट्रेट हे रही गला आयरन सिटो आरि की पड़े छी तेणु से जगह बर्तन गोटे देखा होची बॉक्साइट डिपॉजिट्स तेणु ये देखला दैट इज ए आउटकम ऑफ द केमिकल वेदरिंग प्रोसेस ऑफ बॉक्साइट डिपॉजिट्स आर मोस्टली द केमिकल ओरिजिन तेणु एमती है कि वी हैव डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ केमिकल एक्शंस कोठी कार्बन रिएक्शन होची कोठी वाटर रिएक्शन होची कोठी वाटर बिकम्स एसिड आल्सो एंड एसिड है कि तार बेसिकली माइनर एसिड है कि सी डिकम्पोजिशन आउट डिके करूची एमती है कि केमिकल वेदरिंग होची फिजिकल वेदरिंग होची ऑफ डिफरेंट टाइप्स व्हिच विल बी गोइंग थ्रू द लिटरेचर तछड़ा किसी बायोलॉजिकल वेदरिंग होची बायोलॉजिकल वेदरिंग जोटी बायोलॉजिकल एजेंट इज इन्वॉल्व इन द वेदरिंग प्रोसेस कोन हिचे ना गोटे गछ उठिला जो कांथ देरे गछ आस्ते आस्ते बड़ हला तार रूट बड़ हला तापर से कांथ को भागिला कांथ भागी जेटी पड़िला दैट इज बायोलॉजिकल वेदरिंग एटा सिना कांथ रे हला मंदिर रे हला कि हला किंतु जदी नेचर रे जतोल होची बड़ बड़ रॉक वास जाको भी इग्नियस रॉक जाको भी आस्ते आस्ते सेडिमेंटरी रॉक जाको भी आस्ते आस्ते भागिबा होची बिकॉज़ ऑफ दिस बायोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस इन द फॉरेस्ट that is a गोटे बायोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस ब्राउजिंग एनिमल्स से माने कोले की जो गात बात करंती इठु आरंभ करी विभिन्न प्रकार ब्राउजिंग स्पीसीज अछि जे माने कि दे आल्सो क्रिएट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ आइडियल कंडीशंस फॉर बायोलॉजिकल वेदरिंग ताट सबुट बेसी बायोलॉजिकल वेदरिंग रो एविडेंस तुम देखियो पड़ियो मंदिर रे जोठी हमर ब्लू ग्रीन एल्जी जो सिउली जो हे जाए कांथरे सिउली हला पर कोन ना से सिउली जगह आस्ते आस्ते तार रूट जोन रे पानी को रखे पानी की रखिला पर से आस्ते आस्ते से जो रॉक ऊपर हिते से रॉक को आस्ते आस्ते डिसॉल्व करी भीतर को चले ताको वीक करे वीक कला पर से आस्ते आस्ते तबरे भागिबा को जाए The role of this blue-green algae on the walls is a kind of process that chelation process called. That is a kind of chemical reaction. ଯେତେ ଖରା ହେଲେ ବି କଣ ହବ ନା ଉପରଟା ମରିଯିବ ସେ ରୁଟ୍ ଜୋନଟା ଯୋଉଟା ଭିତରେ ଅଛି ସିଏ ଥିବ ପ୍ରୋଟେକ୍ଟ ହେଇକି ଯେତେବେଳେ ପୁଣି ବର୍ଷା ଆସିବ ସେ ପୁଣି ବାହାରିବ so they will never die. ଏମିତି ହେଇକି ଟେମ୍ପଲ ୱାଲ୍ସ if are not maintaining properly ତାହେଲେ ଟେମ୍ପଲ ୱାଲ୍ ଯାକ ଏମିତି ହେଇକି ଓଲ୍ଡ ଟେମ୍ପଲ ଯୋଉଟା ଛାଡି ଦିଅନ୍ତି ସେ ସମୟରେ ଭାଙ୍ଗେ. So this is how the biological weathering takes place. So in nature the weathering prepares the materials for transportation. ତେଣୁ ଇଏ ସବୁ କଣ କରେ ନା ମେଟେରିଆଲ କୁ डिसलोकेट कर दिए तार ओरिजिनल प्लेस रु आ रेडी कर रखे गोटे एजेंट आसिले से संगे संगे बोही की नहीं पड़ेबो विंड आसला कि जिंस उड़े नबो पानी आसला कि जिंस बोही नबो ग्लेशियर आसला सब जिंस को नहीं की पड़ेबो ताडी की तातरु तो ए टाइप रो गोटे कंटीन्यूअस प्रोसेस ऑफ चेंज इज गोइंग ऑन द सरफेस सो दैट इज हाउ द लैंडस्केप चेंजेस आर टेकिंग प्लेस तो ए यूनिट रे से जिंसटा डिस्कस हेछि. अच्छा तापर आ गोटे टाइप रो मूवमेंट हुए ऑन द सरफेस ऑफ द अर्थ ताके कहै जाय मास मूवमेंट फैक्टर्स हला कोन मास मूवमेंट माने कोन सी गोटे जगह रे ऑन द स्लोप ऑफ द माउंटेन्स बिकॉज़ ऑफ द एक्जिस्टिंग स्लोप ए मास ऑफ रॉक व्हिच इज रिलीज्ड फ्रॉम द पेरेंट मटेरियल बाय वेदरिंग मतलब गोटे जगह रे वेदरिंग हला किछ मास लूज हे गेला पर तळो को पडला और से जगह ग्रेजुअली स्लाइड करी करी नेचुरली आसी तळे पडिला बेस ऑफ द माउंटेन. So this itself is called as a mountain mass movement process. Means mass of rock is moving under the gravity. No agent is involved in transporting it. कि पानी नहोनी कि विंड नहोनी से गड़ी गड़ी नेचुरली आसुची. आ ए जिनसटा तमे देखिबो बहुत समय रे इफ यू ट्रैवल अलोंग द हिमालयस हिमालय तो जेतु माउंटेन जगह बहुत उच्च तेणु ता देर माटी गुडी पत्थर धीरे धीरे गड़ी गड़ी आसतो रास्ता पर एंड तमे भाबुतो कि गोटे ऊपर रही कि मते पकोची कि लेवल पकोची कि पकोची बट दैट इज नॉट द प्रोसेस इज दिस ए वेदरिंग प्रोसेस रे कोन जगह लूजन हो जाई आ सेटा आस्ते आस्ते गड़ी गड़ी आसुची बिकॉज़ ऑफ द स्टीप स्लोप. Then this type of mass movements are occurring at different places on the mountain slopes, on the valley slopes, on the river valley slopes, and both जगह रे हुए. And that also creates different type of landform. तार गोटे description से unit रे type of how mass movements जगह अछि तीन चारि प्रकार mass movement. गोटे mass movement of dry rocks और mass movement आ गोटे माने वेट रॉक माने रॉक सहित पानी मिसी जाय छी आ गोटे रॉक ता खाली अछि तेन जोटा रॉक खाली अछि पानी मिसिनी से ड्राई रॉक्स से जगह गोटे टाइप रो मूवमेंट करिवो ता भीतर हमर अछि तीन चारि प्रकार मूवमेंट ता भीतर सबटु बेसी स्टीप मूवमेंट ला गोटे जगह तळु को पड़ी जोटा ता कथि फॉल मूवमेंट गोटे जगह गडी गडी आसीबाटा ता कथि स्लाइड मूवमेंट जा कोन लैंडस्लाइड बोली तापरे जेको जदी टर्न करिकि क्रैक करिकि खसी कि रहला ता कोन स्लिप मूवमेंट तापरे बहुत इम्परसेप्टिबल चेंज जगह कि भारी माइनर माने माइक्रो यूनिट रे चेंज हुई पोजीशन जेंति कि वर्षा पानी पड़ले टोपा जेंति डस्ट पार्टिकल गोटे जे टोपा आ टिके आगु को जीवो सेमति पार्टिकल मूवमेंट भी हुए सरफेस ऑफ द अर्थ व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज क्रीपिंग मूवमेंट. तो क्रीपिंग मूवमेंट फॉल मूवमेंट स्लाइड मूवमेंट आ तापरे आ गोटे टाइप रो मूवमेंट जोटे कि पानी मिसी गला ताहले सेठी हला कोन मड फ्लो. So that is a flow movement. So mass movement in the form of flow. A bele flow भी इतने जोर रे massive way रे हिची that the world has experienced mud flows which has buried the human settlements completely. लोक बारे राति रे सोई जंदी सकाळ राति भितर केतोळे मड फ्लो एते ही जाई वोल्केनिक इरप्शन हे कि खाली मड बाहर छी मड बाहरला परे से मड तक फ्लो करके लाभा बळे आसी पूरा गां बुडी देछि. एमति भी बहुत there are many instances in West Indian islands, Central American islands, Indonesian island रे जगह रे हिची. So there are many such mass movement processes which are responsible for different type of features. The mass movement of creep, flow, slide, fall, और subsidence है कि बेले भी collapse करके बेले mass movement हुए. Then each of these are all different types of movements which are related to gravity, gravitative transfer of materials बोला को कहा जाए and creation of different type of landform features. पढ़ले लागियो बहुत बड़े लागियो if you look at हम जेतु तर पिक्चर देखु ना तेणु हमको टिके theoretical हे जाउची टाइम नहीं बोली जदि we would have gone through the pictures of those landscape with examples across the state or the country ताले तुमको लागता realistic जे how best it can go. तेणु या हिच प्रॉब्लम हमर लाइट चली गला वर्तमान ए जगह रे तेणु आज एतिकी रे रखिबा काली की टुमारो वी विल डिस्कस So anything you would like to? So वर्तमान जाइए जति यूनिट हमर 17 टा यूनिट अछि बाकी जो यूनिट जाके अछि काली के आउटिके एक्सप्लेन करिवि एंड मते लागुनी टाइम हबो बोली पावर पॉइंट देखिया पे आज तो भाबितिले किंतु काई कंप्यूटर काम कलानी काई कोन गोटे प्रॉब्लम होला टुमारो आई विल सी बिफोर हैंड ताको सेट करिवि कोन हेजी देखियो आई विल सी टू दैट आउटिके फास्टर हबो ओके
सर से पावर पॉइंट ग्रुप रे शेयर करतो हमें सेमती भी देखि नबा ठीक है
देखिबो जे किंतु तमे माने मु जोटा एबे करिछि तमरो कोर्स स्ट्रक्चर टा करिछि काली कि जोटा करबी से जाको से कोन होउछि कि बर्तन तम पई कोटा इंपोर्टेंट हबो को जिंसटा देखिले तमको भल लागियो तमे टिके टाइम दरकार तमर कोर्स टा एते जल्दी आरंभ होइछि आमे तो न्यू बिगिनिंग टू दी सेटअप तो हम पाखे टाइम भी नै तमको पावर पॉइंट काना तमको पावर पॉइंट तो गोटे टॉपिक रो देखिले किछ लाभ नै तमर एतुटे टॉपिक अछि गोटे टॉपिक रो देखिले कोन हो तेणु तुम बोली गोटे कैप्सूल फॉर्म रे तयारी करिया पड़िबो पावर पॉइंट जोटा कि टाइम लागियो एबे तुम बैच पई मते लागुची हे परिबोनी किंतु माने जति किछि स्पेसिफिक तुमको जति देखै होन त भलो होन त भाबुची देखियो लेट मी सी काली गोटे दिन भीतर जति किछि करि हबो I will try to cover up something that will clear your doubts केतुडा जिंस को तो मन भीतर जोटा डाउट थिबो से जाकर गोटे क्लैरिटी आसीबो से पिक्चर जाके देखिले तेणु मु सेमते किछिटा पिकअप करिकि तुमको देखिया पे चेष्टा करिवि काली along with the याकू माने गोटे घंटा भितरे विल ट्राई टू फिनिश द कोर्स कंटेंट आर द डिस्कशंस आ तापरे आ जो एको इंपोर्टेंट किछि रही छी से जाक आ सेटा तुमको शेयर कर देबी दैट विल बी इजी फॉर यू देखियो ट्राई करिवे आई विल ट्राई फॉर दैट
सर गोटे क्वेश्चन थिला
को
गोटे थिला मोर असाइनमेंट गोटे क्वेश्चन अछि जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी ऑफ 20th सेंचुरी एंड बियॉन्ड तापर गोटे शॉर्ट नोट्स लिखिया पई देछि त सिकरे हम कोन इंक्लूड करिवु
बियॉन्ड 20th सेंचुरी माने वर्तमान हम 25th सेंचुरी अछि
यस सर
सॉरी बोल जो आर यू गेटिंग मी
यस सर यस सर यस सर
कोन तो गोटे डिस्टर्बेंस हो जेबे साउंड
एबे ओके अछि सर
ओके 21st
Yes, sir.
सेंचुरी रे वर्तमान जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी रो कोन चेंज देखियार चांस अछि बा व्हाट चेंजेस आर द ट्रेंड प्रेजेंट ट्रेंड ऑफ स्टडी ऑफ जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी व्हाट इज इंप्लिकेशंस ऑफ द 21st सेंचुरी 21st सेंचुरी वर्तमान कोन होबाक जाउती जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी तेन जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी कोन होबाक जाउची माने हला जे व्हाट इज समथिंग न्यू दैट डेवलपमेंट इज गोइंग टू टेक प्लेस इन जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी तो पूरा डिस्टर्बेंस होची बुझी क्लियर होची
सर मु बाहर
सर
अछि
से
ट्रेन
যদি
जाउछि
ତାଙ୍କ ମ୍ୟୁଟଟା ଅଫ୍ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତେ ଭଲ ହୁଅନ୍ତା ସ୍ମିତାଞ୍ଜଳି ପ୍ଲିଜ ମ୍ୟୁଟ ୟୋର ମାଇକ୍
कार गोटे कोन प्रॉब्लम है जति पे कि माने ओके वर्तमान मन देला बोधे ठीक अछि 21st सेंचुरी रे आमे जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी को केमति भाबरे देखिबा व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ चेंजेस आर एक्सपेक्टेड इन द ट्रेंड ऑफ डेवलपमेंट ऑफ जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी रो जो पास्ट ट्रेंड चाली छी एंशिएंट क्लासिकल टाइम रो मॉडर्न पीरियड रो मिडिवल पीरियड रो पर्यंत वर्तमान चाहे चेंज ही चाली छी अप टू 19th सेंचुरी तापर 20th सेंचुरी रे कोन हेई छी आ 21st सेंचुरी रे कोन वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग तेनो एई जिंसटा त हमर मध्ये असाइनमेंट रे अछि तेनो 21st सेंचुरी रे वी आर गोइंग टू लुक इनटू द जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी इन अ डिफरेंट वे कोन होबाक जाउची because of the addition of computer technology and the very fast technology of data accumulation, data monitoring, data evaluation, इस जिनस को जेतु सही जाइछि so there is more of model building in जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी कौन से जिनस को करिया पे हेले बहुत गुटे फैक्टर को नेकी गुटे मॉडलिंग करी की ताको कंप्यूटर रे सिमुलेशन करी की देखै हबो जे एई जिनस इनपुट कले एई टाइप रो आउटपुट बाहरियो so that is what is called as system modeling in जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी से जिनस मन कर मु कहबी जे गोटे कोस्ट लाइन एमती अछि से कोस्ट लाइन रा 10 वर्ष पर 20 वर्ष पर 50 वर्ष पर 200 वर्ष पर एमती भाबरे चेंज हो कि गोटे माउंटेन अछि से माउंटेन रो स्लोप एमती अछि वर्तमान माने केते वर्ष पर गोटे जियोलॉजिकल पीरियड ऑफ टाइम रे ए टाइप रो चेंज होवार चांस अछि बी गोटे कोस्टल प्लेन अछि तार कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स पर डेल्टा कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स कोन चेंज हो सो दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड सिमुलेशन मॉडलिंग ऑफ बा रियल टाइम मॉडलिंग गोटे जिनस एटा नुवा जिनस होबाक जाउछि एंड हबो एंड आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस इज गोइंग टू ऐड टू दिस तापर हमरो जेको बिग डाटा एनालिसिस से जाके गोइंग टू हेल्प दिस आ गोटे ला हमरो ये डीप लर्निंग गोटे अछि मतलब कंप्यूटर रे से जाके भी दैट इज आल्सो गोइंग टू हेल्प along with artificial intelligence तो ये जिनस जाक वर्तमान जियोमॉर्फोलॉजिकल मॉडलिंग को बेसी शार्प करिवो एंड बेसी प्रिसाइज करिवो। अच्छा आ गोटे इंपोर्टेंट जिनस हला कोन वर्तमान we have capable of tracing the landforms through the through the satellite images आमे गोटे satellite image रे वर्तमान गोटे particular period रो गोटे particular period भितर कोन चेंज देखौची ताको आमे वर्तमान देखि परुजे मन गोटे पास सैटेलाइट रे इमेज आ वर्तमान प्रेजेंट सैटेलाइट रे इमेज रे आमे दीटा रो चेंज कोन हेची एती वर्ष भितर जानि परुजे ताको सिमुलेशन करी की जो फैक्टर्स तक नै की गोटे फ्यूचर को प्रेडिक्शन करियबो दैट इज व्हाट इज रियल टाइम and data accumulation of remote sensing and geoinformatics को use करके we can simulate the machine learning, use machine learning system and then try to look for a simulation. तेणु ये गोटे टाइप रो नुआ जिनस डेवलप करिवो। तापर तृतीय जिनस हला we are more focusing on form and process आउ हमरो से जो description of landforms जिनस जाक जो classical qualitative description रो we are moving towards a quantitative exploration of the origin of the landforms and change of the landforms and shape of the landforms कोन हबो को भाबरे shape आसीबो कोन तार form हबो तार mass कोन हबो ए सब जिनस जाक we are likely to go towards this। तापर आउ गोटे जिनस हला जे हम मतलब recent technology जा सब आसीची वर्तमान that we can also explore using the जियोलॉजिकल इनपुट्स ठीक है जियोलॉजिकल इनपुट्स वर्तमान आगु एक्सप्लोर करिवार स्कोप टिके बहुत कम थिला वर्तमान वी आर हैविंग ए लार्जर स्कोप ऑफ एक्सप्लोरिंग टू द जियोलॉजी एंड एज ऑफ द रॉक आउ तार जियोलॉजिकल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स को जदी एस्टैब्लिश करि पारजे देन वी कैन सिमुलेट द इरोजन माने ओरिजिन ऑफ द लैंडफॉर्म्स इन ए मच बेटर वे तने इमते किछटा नुवा जिंस वर्तमान वी आर गोइंग टू सी application of remote sensing techniques in geomorphology, application of model building in geomorphology, application of form and process studies in geomorphology, application of stochastic system analysis in geomorphology, use of machine learning, artificial intelligence in geomorphological studies. तापर आउ गोटे नुआ जिनस वर्तमान आसी यूज ऑफ जियोमॉर्फोलॉजिकल नॉलेज इन एप्लिकेशन एरियाज गोटे एप्लिकेशन एरिया रे केमते हमें यूज करि परिबा से जिनस आगुरु बेसी नथिला वर्तमान बेसी हबा को जाउची काना जते एक्यूरेसी बढ़िबो our data understanding, data interpretation, or data quantification that will be more acceptable to the people who are working. तेणु वर्तमान आमर कोन हिची ना आमर देखिबो आगुरु पिला माने आमर ज्योग्राफी पिला माने they are not getting jobs but now geography students with GIS background, remote sensing background are now working with the water resource department, soil conservation department, forest department, health department सब department माने वर्तमान काम कलेनी GIS experts almost all departments of the government planning department सबुथिरे वर्तमान माने आसिलेनी काहे कि ना you need data and on real time basis and you need data to process in the form of स्पेशल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स तो मु मैप भीतर डाटा को प्रोसेस करके देखिया पड़िबो को जगह रे कोन चेंज होबार अछि को जगह रे कोन होबार अछि तो दीज आर समथिंग न्यू व्हिच आर कमिंग अप हला बुझ पलो
यस सर
ओके रखिबे ताले को
गोटे डाउट सर आपण जो कहले हिमालय रो फॉर्मेशन अलगा लैंडमास अनुसार हिमालय तो गोटे रिसेंट फेनोमेना सर ताला तार फॉर्मेशन ता बुझी पालिनी सर केमती फॉर्म हला तार हाइट माने हाउ माने तार एते बडो हाइट केमती तार हला सर सेटा आउट टिके कोइ
सी जगह रे तेथि सी थिला एंड तेथि सी वाज अ वेरी ओल्ड सी फॉर अ लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम वेयर लॉट ऑफ सेडिमेंटेशन वर टेकिंग प्लेस तेथि सी भितर को हमर जो जगह नई वर्तमान जाईची नॉर्थ पोल को होईची ओ भी निसिले ना आ जो बड़ बड़ नई जाके अछि से सब एपट को बहुतला हमर जो गंगा ब्रह्मपुत्र आ ए जो नई जाके एपट बहुतला साउथ को दे चेंज देयर कोर्सेस आफ्टर द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द हिमालय हला पर सब जो कोर्स चेंज हेज बहुत तेरे बहुत गुटे सेडिमेंटेशन हेतला टेथि सी रे सो देयर हैज बीन सफिशिएंट वर्तमान तमे जदी देखिबो गंगा नदी रे केते सेडिमेंटेशन हे जानिछ 1000 मीटर ऑफ सेडिमेंट्स हैव बीन डिपॉजिटेड इन द गंगा रिवर वैली गंगा पाखरे तमे जदी खोलिबो दी साइड रे 10 किलोमीटर भितरे गंगा वैली रो पाखरु तमे रिवर सैंड पाइबो 1 किलोमीटर तळे माने 1000 मीटर तळे इवन 2 किलोमीटर बंद भी जगह रे मिलुची ता माने वर्तमान कोन हला तार मीनिंग हला जे वर्तमान एतिकी अमाउंट रो सैंड से जगह रे डिपॉजिट हलानी पर सेटा सेमति खाल थिला कि वर्तमान कोन खाल अछि सेठी खाल नथिला किंतु प्रति वर्ष सेडिमेंट आसी डिपॉजिट होउची डिपॉजिट हला पर तार वेट रे कोन हिची ना से जगहटा कंप्रेस हे कि तळु जाउची ଯେମିତି ମହାନଦୀ ଡେଲ୍ଟା ଯେତେବେଳେ ନଥିଲା ଗ୍ରାଜୁଆଲି ସେଡିମେଣ୍ଟେସନ ହେଲା ପରେ କଣ ହଉଛି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଗ୍ରାଜୁଆଲି ଦିସ୍ କ୍ରଷ୍ଟ ଇଜ ସବସାଇଡିଂ ଏଟ୍ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ପ୍ଲେସ୍ ବିକଜ ଅଫ ଦ ଓଭରଲାଇଂ ୱେଟ୍ ତେଣୁ ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଜିଓସିନକ୍ଲେନ୍ ଭଳିଆ ଫଙ୍କସନ କରୁଛି ତେଣୁ ଏମିତି ହେଇକି ସେଡିମେଣ୍ଟ ଏକୁମୁଲେସନ ହେଲା ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସେଇ ସେଡିମେଣ୍ଟ ଯାକ ଯଦି କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ଗୋଟେ ଫୋଲ୍ଡ ହବ ବାଇ ସର୍ଟନ ପ୍ରେସର ତାହେଲେ କଣ ହବ ସେ ଫୋଲ୍ଡରେ ଗ୍ରାଜୁଆଲି ସେଡିମେଣ୍ଟସ ୱିଲ୍ ଫୋଲ୍ଡ ଆଣ୍ଡ ରାଇଜ ଅଫ୍ ତେଣୁ ସେଇ ଅବସ୍ଥାକୁ ଯାଇଛି ରାଇଜ ହେଇଛି ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଷ୍ଟେଜରେ ରାଇଜ ସହିତ ଆର୍ଥକ୍ୱେକ୍ ବେଳେବେଳେ ହେଇଛି ବେଳେବେଳେ ଫଲ୍ଟିଂ ହେଇଛି ବେଳେବେଳେ କ୍ରାକିଂ ହେଇଛି ବେଳେବେଳେ ଡିସପ୍ଲେସମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇଛି ଏମିତି ହେଇକି ଦିସ୍ ହିମାଲୟାନ has formed ତାପରେ ପରେ କ୍ଲାଇମେଟ has shaped the landscape ତେଣୁ କୋଉ ଜାଗାରେ ଗ୍ଲାସିୟର ହେଇଗଲା ଗ୍ଲାସିୟର ପରେ ସେ ପିକ୍ ହେଇଗଲା କୋଉ ଜାଗାରେ ହର୍ନ ହେଇଗଲା କୋଉ ଜାଗାରେ ଭ୍ୟାଲି ହେଇଗଲା ଗ୍ଲାସିଆଲ ଭ୍ୟାଲି ହେଇଗଲା ତାପରେ ରିଭର ଭ୍ୟାଲି ହେଇଗଲା ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ସ୍ଲୋପ ଜାଗା ଗ୍ରାଜୁଆଲି ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଲା so these are the situations in which things have come up ଯେହେତୁ ଓଭରନାଇଟ୍ ହେଇନି it is a very long geological period ପାଖାପାଖି 10 ମିଲିୟନ ବର୍ଷ ଲାଗିଛି ୟାକୁ ଏଇଭଳିଆ ଫର୍ମେସନ ରୁ ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆସିବା ପାଇଁ ଆଉ ଯେହେତୁ
ସାର୍
ହୁଁ
ମାନେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଡିଭାଇଡ କରିଛେ ଆପଣ କହିଲେ ରିଭର ଭ୍ୟାଲି ହେଇଗଲା ତାପରେ ପ୍ଲେନ୍ସ ପ୍ଲାଟ୍ୟୁଜ ଆଣ୍ଡ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସ ତାଙ୍କର ବେସିସ୍ ଅଫ ଡିଭିଜନ କଣ ଫର ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଇନ୍ ନର୍ଦର୍ନ ପ୍ଲେନ୍ସରେ ବି ତ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସ ଅଛନ୍ତି ତ ଆମେ କୋଉ ବେସିସରେ ମାନେ ତିନିଟାକୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଡିଭାଇଡ କରିବା
ନର୍ଦର୍ନ ପ୍ଲେନରେ କୋଉଠି ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଅଛି
ସେ ନର୍ଦର୍ନ ପ୍ଲେନର ଯୋଉ ମାନେ ତାର ବାଉଣ୍ଡରୀ ଯୋଉ ଏପଟରେ ବନଉଛନ୍ତି ଏପଟରେ ଆରାବଳି ଅଛି ଆଉ ତାର
ଆରାବଳି
ୱେଷ୍ଟର୍ନ
ନର୍ଦର୍ନ ପ୍ଲେନରେ ଯାଉନି
ନା
ନର୍ଦର୍ନ ପ୍ଲେନରେ ଯାଉନି ଆରାବଳି ରହିଯାଉଛି
ସାର୍
ନର୍ଦର୍ନ
ତାହେଲେ
ପ୍ଲେନରେ
ଯୋଉ
ଯାଉଛି
ପ୍ଲେନ ଏରିଆରେ କଣ କେବେ ବି କିଛି ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ରୁହନ୍ତିନି କି ପ୍ଲାଟ୍ୟୁ ରୁହନ୍ତିନି
ରହିବ ରିଭର ତମର ମହାନଦୀ ଡେଲ୍ଟା ଭିତରେ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ନାହିଁ ମହାନଦୀ ଡେଲ୍ଟା ଆମେ ଯୋଉଟା କହୁଛେ ତା
ହଁ
ଭିତରେ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଅଛି ନା ନାହିଁ ତମେ କୋଉ ଏରିଆର ତମ ଏରିଆ କଣ କୁହ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ
ସାର୍
କହିବ
ଯାଜପୁର
ଯାଜପୁର ଆଚ୍ଛା ତାହେଲେ ତ ବହୁତ ବଢିଆ ହେଲା ଆଚ୍ଛା ତମର ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯାଜପୁର ଆଉ ତାପରେ କଟକ ଆଉ ତାପରେ ପୁରୀ ଆଉ ତାପରେ ଗଞ୍ଜାମ ଆଉ ତାପରେ ସେପଟେ ରହିଲା ଭଦ୍ରକ ଆଉ ବାଲେଶ୍ୱର ଏଇ ଯୋଉ କୋଷ୍ଟାଲ ପ୍ଲେନ ଆ ଭିତରେ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଅଛି ନା ନାହିଁ
ଅଛି ସାର୍
ହଁ ଅଛି ଆଚ୍ଛା ଯଦି ତାକୁ ଅଛି ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ତଥାପି କୋଷ୍ଟାଲ ପ୍ଲେନ କାହିଁକି
ହଁ ସାର୍ ସେଇଟା
ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ପ୍ଲେନ୍ସ କାହିଁକି କହୁନି କାହିଁକି ନା ଡୋମିନେନ୍ସ ଇଜ ଦି ପ୍ଲେନ ଟା ଡୋମିନେଣ୍ଟ ଅଛି ପ୍ଲେନ ଟା ଫର୍ମେସନ ହଉଛି ଆଉ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଜାଗା ଆସ୍ତେ ଆସ୍ତେ ସମର୍ଜ ହଉଛି ବା ବୁଡୁଛି ବା ଆସ୍ତେ ଆସ୍ତେ ଇରୋଡେଡ ହେଇଯାଉଛି so ultimately the process is fewer mountains are there but the maximum area is covered by the plains ତେଣୁ ସେମିତି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ଜିଓଗ୍ରାଫିକ ଯେତେବେଳେ ରିଜନ କରାହଉଛି you cannot get a homogeneity ଯେମିତି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ କୁହାହଉଛି heterogeneity but there is homogeneity in heterogeneity ନାଇଁ ଯୋଉ କନସେପ୍ଟ ଏକ୍ଜାକ୍ଟଲି ସେଇ କନସେପ୍ଟ ତମେ ଗୋଟେ ଜିଓଗ୍ରାଫିକ ଡିଭିଜନ ଭିତରେ absolutely zero ଏଟା ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ନୁହଁ ଯେ absolutely 0 ପରେ 1 ପରେ 2 ଆଉ 2 ଆଉ 1 ଭିତରେ ଆଉ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଏଇ ଜିନିଷ ଯାକ ହେଇପାରିବ ନାହିଁ ଇନ୍ ଫିଜିକାଲ ସାଇନ୍ସେସ୍ ଲାଇକ୍ ଜିଓଲୋଜି ଜିଓଗ୍ରାଫି ଜିଓମର୍ଫୋଲୋଜି ଜିଓଫିଜିକ୍ସ ସେଇ ଜାଗାରେ ହବନି ତେଣୁ ୟୁ ହ୍ୟାଭ୍ ଟୁ କ୍ଲାସିଫାଇ ଦି ଏରିଆଜ ବେସ୍ଡ ଅନ୍ ସର୍ଟନ୍ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ କ୍ୟାରେକ୍ଟରିଷ୍ଟିକ୍ସ ତେଣୁ ନର୍ଦର୍ନ ପ୍ଲେନ୍ ଯେତେବେଳେ କୁହାଗଲା ତା ଭିତରେ ଯଦି କିଛିଟା ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ରହିଯିବ ଇଟ୍ ଇଜ ନଟ୍ ଏ ଭେରି ଏକ୍ସେପସନ ରହିବାର ଚାନ୍ସ ଅଛି ଯେମିତି ମହାନଦୀ ଡେଲ୍ଟା ଭିତରେ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଅଛି ଚିଲିକା ଭିତରେ ଆମର ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଅଛି ନାଇଁ
ହଁ
ହଁ
Sir, we
ତାହେଲେ
can say it peak.
ହଁ
We can say it peak rather than mountain.
ପିକ୍ ବୋଲି କହିବାନି ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ତ ଅଛି ଆଉ କଣ କୋଉଠି ପିକ୍ ଅଛି କୋଉଠି ପିକ୍ ନାହିଁ
ସାର୍
ତମ
ସେଇଟା ବି
ଡେଲାଙ୍ଗରେ
ମୋର ଟିକେ ଡାଉଟ ଥିଲା ପିକ୍ ହିଲ୍ ରେଞ୍ଜ ଆଉ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଭିତରେ ମାନେ
ପିକ୍
ଡିଫରେନ୍ସ
ହେଲା
କଣ
ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ ଯୋଉଟାକ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ କ୍ରେଷ୍ଟ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ
ଟପମୋଷ୍ଟ ପଏଣ୍ଟ
ନାଇଁ ପ୍ରଥମ କଥା ହେଲା 1000 ଫିଟ ରୁ ଅଧିକା ହେଲେ ସାଧାରଣତଃ ତାକୁ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ କୁହାଯାଏ 100 ଫୁଟ ରୁ 1000 ଫିଟ ଭିତରେ ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଜେନେରାଲ କୌଣସି ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡାର୍ଡ ଡେଫିନେସନ ଏମିତି ଗୋଟେ ଲେଖା ହେଇନି କିନ୍ତୁ ଦିସ୍ ଇଜ ଏ କଣ୍ଟେକ୍ଚୁଆଲ ମାନେ କୁହାଯାଏ ସାଧାରଣତଃ ମାନେ ଦିସ୍ ଇଜ ଏ କମନ ସେନ୍ସ ଆପ୍ଲିକେସନ 100 ରୁ 1000 ଫୁଟ ଭିତରେ ଯୋଉ ଯାକ ରହିଲା ସେ ଯାକ ହେଲା ହିଲ୍ସ ଆଉ ତା ତଳକୁ ରହିଲେ ମାଉଣ୍ଟସ ଏମିତି କୁହାଯାଏ ତା ତଳକୁ ତେଣୁ ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ପ୍ଲେଟି ବି ଅଛି ଯୋଉ ଯାକ 1000 ଫୁଟ ଉପରେ ଅଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ପ୍ଲେଟ୍ୟୁ ଇଜ ବିକଜ ଇଟ୍ ଇଜ ଏ ଫ୍ଲାଟ ସରଫେସ୍ ଏଟା ଭେରି ହାଇ ଅଲ୍ଟିଚ୍ୟୁଡ ବା ଅଣ୍ଡୁଲେଟିଂ ସରଫେସ୍ ଏଟା ଭେରି ହାଇ ଅଲ୍ଟିଚ୍ୟୁଡ ତେଣୁ ତାକୁ ସେ ଅଲ୍ଟିଚ୍ୟୁଡ ଅଧିକା ଅଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ତାର ସରଫେସ୍ ଟା ଟିକେ ମାନେ ନଟ୍ ୱିଥ୍ ପିକ୍ସ ଅର୍ ନଟ୍ ୱିଥ୍ ହିଲ୍ସ ଇଟ୍ସ ଏ
Table
ଫ୍ଲାଟ
land, sir.
ଅଣ୍ଡୁଲେଟିଂ ଟେବୁଲ
Table
ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ
land.
ତେଣୁ ହଁ ଟେବୁଲ ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଇ ପାରିବ ୟେସ୍ ଭେରି ଗୁଡ ୟୁ ହାଭ୍ ୟୁଜ୍ଡ ଏ ରାଇଟ୍ ୱାର୍ଡ ତେଣୁ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ଲେଟ୍ୟୁଟା ଗୋଟେ ଟେବୁଲ ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ it may be less than a mountain but it is a table land
Okay, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Okay. Okay,
Sir,
very good.
actually ପଚାରୁଥିଲି ସେ ଯୋଉ assignment ରେ question ଗୁଡାକ ଅଛି 10 marks 5 marks ତ ଜିଓମର୍ଫୋଲୋଜି ଅନୁଯାୟୀ ସବୁଆଡେ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ଦେବାର ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ବା ଚିତ୍ର ଦେବାର ଗୋଟେ ଥାଉଛି compulsory।
ଯୋଉଠି ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ଦେବାର ସ୍କୋପ ଅଛି ଦବ।
Sir, ସେଠି 5 number marks answer ରେ fault ଗୁଡାକ ଅଛି ତ fault ର class
ହଁ ଛୋଟିଆ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ଟେ କରିବ ଗୋଟେ ରେଖା ଚିତ୍ର କରିବାର କେତେ ସମୟ ଲାଗୁଛି? ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ ତମ 5
ନାଇଁ
ମିନିଟରେ ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ କରିନିଅ।
ସେ fault ର classification ଲେଖିକି ତାର ସବୁ fault ଗୁଡାକ ମାନେ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ କରିବାର ଅଛି କି?
क्वेश्चन कौन पचारुची आंसर कौन करिवो टाइम केते दिया ହେଇଛି मार्क केते अछि सब जिंस को बेस करके गोटे बैलेंस करी करिया पड़िवो बट यू शुड हैव एट लीस्ट 1 or 2 डायग्राम टू इंडिकेट दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड द थिंग्स इन ए वे
ओके
नॉट
सर।
दैट तुम 5 मिनिट रे सब जा डायग्राम कर दो शेयर तथापि किन गोटे दिन डायग्राम करिया दरकार जाना पड़िवो जे तुम आंसर करिवार स्किल अछि विथ द डायग्राम।
ओ ହଉ ଠିକ ଅଛି ସାର୍। ନାଇଁ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି 5 marks କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ଥିଲା ତ ମୁଁ ପଚାରୁଥିଲି ଯେ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ସେଠି ଦିଆ ମାନେ ଦେବାକୁ କମ୍ପଲସରି କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଜଷ୍ଟ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଫଲ୍ସ ତ କ୍ଲାସିଫିକେସନ ଦେଇକିରି ସେମିତି କଣ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ଦେବାର ଅଛି ନା ନାଇଁ?
ତମେ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଆନ୍ସର ଲେଖିବ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ନଥିବ ଆଉ ଜଣେ ବି ଏକ୍ସାକ୍ଟଲି ସେଇ ଆନ୍ସର ଲେଖିବ ୱିଥ ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ତାହେଲେ ତାର ଡାଇଗ୍ରାମ ସେ ଅଧିକ ମାର୍କ ପାଇବ ନା ନାଇଁ?
ହଁ ହଁ
ବୁଝିପାରିଲ ତ?
ହଁ ବୁଝିପାରିଲି ସାର୍।
डिपेंड्स ऑन योर स्पीड तमर जदी स्पीड बहुत स्लो लिखि परिबनी टाइम हबनी तम डायग्राम करि परिबनी खाली लिखि के आसीओ आ जनकर टिके स्पीड अधिक अछि से आंसर भी कर देला तुम जे आंसर से भी सहाय कर देला कारण गोटे जगह तो मटेरियल पढु आंसर भी सहाय हबो तो आंसर भी कर देला प्लस डायग्राम भी कर देला तो नेचुरली मार्क अधिक हबो तमन।
ओके सर हौ सर।
तेणु डायग्राम करिवाटा इज ए स्किल इन आंसरिंग तेणु यू शुड नॉट अवॉइड दैट किंतु टाइम अनुसार करिवो नॉट माने तमर 5 मिनिट टाइम अछि जदी गोटे 5 मार्क रे क्वेश्चन रे डायग्राम बेसी करिया दरकार नै गोटे दिटा छोटिया डायग्राम माने वेरी स्मॉल 1 इंच साइज रो गोटे डायग्राम करिया अछि देखो जी पेन दिटा गारो पकेतले हिची गोटे डायग्राम किंतु डायग्राम कले सबले लेबलिंग करथो डायग्राम ना कंप्लीट करिया पे जो पर्पस पे डायग्राम टा कला सेटा को देखिया पे लेबलिंग करथो।
ओके सर।
ओके रखिबा ना आउ का क्वेश्चन अछि?
सर ସେଇଟା ଟିକେ କହିଲେନି ପିକ୍ ରେଞ୍ଜ ଆଉ ହିଲ୍ ଭିତରେ।
हाँ peak कहला the horn that is available at the top of the mountain गोटे माउंटेन रो ऊपर जदी गोटे कोनिकल शेप रो प्रोजेक्शन रहे ताले ताकू कहा जाए पीक बोले जदी से कोनिकल प्रोजेक्शन नाही देन इट इज ए माउंट कारण सेटा गोटे क्रेस्ट ऊपर नाही कोनिकल स्ट्रक्चर देन सेटा हला पीकलेस जदी रहिला ताले तो माउंट एवरेस्ट रे पीक अछि शिमिलीपाल रे पीक अछि कि हमर मेघासन रे पीक अछि कि हमर महेंद्रगिरी रे पीक अछि ए जगह पीक अछि किंतु एमिति किछटा हिल अछि जगह पीक नाही किछटा हिल अछि जोटा कि पीक नाही जोटा कि हमें जानिने बट वी डू नॉट नो बट देयर आर मेनी प्लेसेस ओडिसा रे हम बेसी एग्जांपल पाइ नै किंतु ओडिसा बाहर बहुत एग्जांपल अछि जोटा कि माउंटेन्स अछि हिल्स अछि बट देयर आर पीक्स बर्तमान तमे जदि जीवो पचपत मालिकी जीवो जोटी बॉक्साइड माइन होची इट इज ए टेबल लैंड पीक नाही सेठी पीक नाही देयर इज नो पीक इट इज ए फ्लैट फुटबॉल फील्ड पूरा फुटबॉल फील्ड वाला फ्लैट जोटी बॉक्साइड माइन होची।
सर जदि फ्लैट थिबो ताले हमें ताको कोन माउंटेन कहबा ना प्लेट्यू कहबा?
सेटा माउंटेन काई ना माउंटेन रो प्लेट्यू ता हला कोन गोटे तार एरिया पुनी अछि ना तार बेस अछि तार स्लोप अछि प्लेट्यू रे स्लोप रहिबनी एटी स्लोप अछि टेबल लैंड बट देयर इज स्लोप that means it is a mountain without a peak. So there can be a mountain without a peak, there can be a mountain with a peak. And ये वाला peak जदि ଗୋଟେ mountain elongated ହେଇକି ରहे ताले ताको range कुआ जाए. If it is elongated more than its transverse width ताले that is the range. Mountain range बोली ताको कुआ जाए. The Rocky
Sir,
Mountain
can we
range,
say a
Andes
chain of
Mountain range,
mountains
Alps
is known
range.
as mountain range? So can we say the chain of mountains is known as mountain range?
हाँ सेया नो कि that is elongated elongated in the direction ताको जदि geologically और scientifically कहबा the mountain that elongates along the strike line.
Thank you.
It's called as range. ତମେ ଯେଟା କହୁଛ ଚେନ୍ ଅଫ୍ ମାଉଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସ ଇଂଲିଶ ୱାର୍ଡରେ କହିଲ ମୁଁ ତାକୁ ଜିଓଲୋଜି ୱାର୍ଡରେ କହୁଛି। ତେଣୁ ତମେ ଯଦି ସେଇଟା ଲେଖିବ ବି ଠିକ ଅଛି, ଏଇଟା ଲେଖିଲେ ବି ଠିକ ଅଛି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଯିଏ ଏଇଟା ଲେଖିବ you will appeal the examiner more than what you are writing. ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ?
Yes, sir.
ତେଣୁ ଲେଖୁଛି ମାନେ mountain that extends along the direction of the strike more than its basal width, then it is supposed to be called as a range. କିନ୍ତୁ ତମେ ଯଦି ଲେଖିଲ ସେଇଟା ବି correct, it's not a wrong answer, but you are using the English word, not a very appropriate
Yes.
word to the something.
According to
Correct.
geography. Yes.
ଭୁଲ ନୁହଁ।
Understood, sir.
ଏତେ ବେଶୀ କିଛି ଖରାପ କରିବନି ଆନ୍ସର। ସ୍ଲାଇଟଲି ଡିଫରେନ୍ସ କରିପାରେ, ଯଦି କିଛି ମାର୍କ ଦେବାର ସ୍କୋପ ଥିବ ତାହେଲେ ତାକୁ ଟିକେ ଅଧିକା ଦେବେ, ତାକୁ ଟିକେ କମ ଦେବେ, ଏମିତି ହେଇପାରେ, ଟିକେ ଅଳ୍ପ 0.5 ଡିଫରେନ୍ସ may be created. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we'll keep it here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ବନ୍ଦ କରିବା।
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
ଆଜି ତ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଟେକ୍ନିକାଲ ହାଜାର୍ଡରେ ପଡିଗଲୁ। ମୋର କାହିଁ ମାନେ ଲିଙ୍କ ହେଲାନି କମ୍ପ୍ୟୁଟରରେ ବିଲକୁଲ। I didn't know what happened with the system. Okay.